Ladies and gentlemen, the town meeting, quorum of 226 having been declared by the town clerk. The 2024 spring annual town meeting will please come to order. This is the 97th year that the town of Dedham has been governed by the representative town meeting form of government. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Please remain standing as we observe a moment of silence, keeping in mind the tragedies being experienced by the people of Israel, Gaza, West Bank, Ukraine, Haiti, and the plight of all who have fled their countries from poverty and violence to get a new start in the United States. Please remain standing as we remember those members of our town government community who have passed away in the past year. Larry Rooney, Thomas Bonchek, Bob Hanson, Margaret DiGiacomo, retired Fire Chief William Cullinane, retired Police Officer Fred Caruso, and Marie Daly. Thank you. Thank you. All newly elected and re-elected town meeting representatives, please remain standing to be sworn in by the town clerk, Paul Muntry.
At this time, all the newly elected town meeting representatives, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially, and to the best of my ability, perform the duties as a town meeting representative for the town of Dedham, so help me God. Congratulations, you're all sworn in.
The chair is pleased to once again nominate my colleague Cheryl Ann W. Sheehan as deputy moderator. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Ask the town clerk to please swear in Ms. Sheehan. I had a couple of comments that this may not be loud enough. Is there a way to... That's exactly what I said. You can't hear me. God knows I didn't get all dressed up not to be heard, so... Can we raise the volume on this microphone?
Might have to move it closer to your mouth, too.
If it's any closer, it'll be in my mouth. Check one, check two. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you. Right up to it.
All right, wouldn't do this during the COVID era, but the town of Dedham, we will do it. Thank you. Great. Thank you. As we conduct this meeting, we'll be aware that for many of our members, this is a relatively new experience. There are 29 new members this year, joining the 127 new members for the past 2 years, which means that over 60% of the town meeting representative body is relatively new to this process. So I know that you will extend courtesy to them as they find their way here. I'd like to introduce, for the benefit of those people who are new, some of the speakers on the podium here. To my right, well, we're very happy to have Mike and Pete from Meridia here They're the people that have set up our electronic voting. Paul Munchback, Town Clerk, Kristen Morse, the Assistant Town Clerk, Cheryl Ann Sheehan, Deputy Moderator. And over here we have Dave Roberts, who's Chair of Finance and Warrant Committee, and Michelle Person Riley, who is the Vice Chair. The other members of the Finance and Warrant Committee are seated here in the front. When you do speak, please state your name and district each time you speak for the benefit of the court stenographer, who is preparing a transcript of this meeting. We've been asked to review the rules governing quantum of vote. How many votes does it take to pass different kinds of motions? Most motions require only a simple majority. Anytime that is different, I will point it out to you. But to elaborate a bit more, anytime we borrow money or issue a bond, that's a 2/3 vote. Move the question, in other words, stop debate, takes 2/3 vote to stop debate. Appropriate money from a general stabilization fund requires 2/3. We're not asking to do that at this meeting. Only a simple majority to put money into a general stabilization fund. And the town does have such a fund. Article 9 does transfer cash into the fund, and that will be a majority. If we were to take money out of a special purpose stabilization fund, so in our case, that's the Robin Reyes Fund, that would require a 2/3 vote, but we're not asking anybody to do that at this meeting. Zoning articles require a 2/3 vote, except for certain housing-related zoning bylaws, which promote, among other things, mixed use, multifamily housing, or accessory dwelling units. The zoning ordinance proposing any of those things requires only a majority vote as a result of a newly passed state law. If you want to allow public bathhouses or public wash houses, that is also a 2/3 vote. But Nancy, we don't have any requests for a public bathhouse, right? Okay, good. So thanks to David Ritchie from Precinct 3 for proposing this. And also thanks to Lisa Sheehan for proposing that we offer later in the year a special forum to describe the debt exclusion process. Assuming we proceed with the decision to build a new Oakdale school, we will need to give ourselves a waiver from Proposition 2.5, and that's called a debt exclusion. So closer to the time that happens, we will convene a community forum and explain it and answer any questions you might have. Let's now review the rules of conduct for the meeting. As a background, a town meeting is a legislative body. That's a distinct legal term. And as such, this is different from public comment periods at other board and committee hearings. You are not part of the public. You are the decision makers. The town meeting representatives are not public speakers. You are part of the deliberation. This calls for a certain consideration when we're expressing ourselves. Members are to speak directly to the issue, refrain from disparaging other members, other town officials, or citizens in their comments. You can certainly be passionate, you can be angry, but be passionate and angry focused on the issue and not the people who don't agree with you. The rules and standards that we follow when participating in the debate discussion part of our meeting, and that is the main part of town meeting, of course. Dedham, as well as most other communities in Massachusetts, use town meeting time, a handbook of parliamentary law. This is a manual of procedures that has been prepared by a committee of Massachusetts moderators, and it incorporates provisions of Massachusetts law, court decisions handed down by Massachusetts courts, as well as practices in other procedural manuals. So some points to emphasize. No person should speak unless they're recognized by the moderator. Generally speaking, that's not a problem here in Dedham. All comments and questions must be addressed to the moderator. Members are not to directly question or cross-examine another member or a town official or a town department head. Rather, they make their point, ask their question, and you can direct the question to a particular department, then sit down while the moderator recognizes the appropriate person to answer the question. If you're not satisfied with the answer, you seek to be recognized again. Are there any questions on this? Great. Massachusetts general law vests a lot of weight with the moderator of town meetings to, quote, preside and regulate the proceedings, decide all questions of order. But it's always been my belief that the meeting runs better when members understand the rules, voluntarily agree to follow them as opposed to relying on the moderator with a gavel to keep the meeting running well and keep the meeting running civil. So I ask for your continued help in that regard. We're ready to begin our meeting. Please silence your cell phones, and all members, please remove your hats. Let's move to the warrant book. This is our warrant book. Please note there is a supplement to the warrant book, which you have received, and that was to account for some last-minute labor contracts that were settled. And there are also correction pages for pages 8, 9, and 14. You should have those as well. We're going to go through the warrant book and read the number of each article and each budget line item. If you have a question, a comment, or amendment, you need to call out the word pass. You do not need to be recognized. This is one of the few times you don't need to be recognized. This consent calendar process, as it's called, has been used by the town of Dedham since 1945. And it's a way of indicating which of the many things that are on the warrant people really want to talk about or question, and which ones they do not. After we have been through that process, I will again read the list of everything that we have collected as being passed, and this would be an opportunity for somebody to say that we missed them, or to say, I meant to pass something, please add pass, and we'll simply add you to the list. Once that is done, we will go back to the beginning and read each of the past articles or past budget line items and debate and vote on those. So is that clear? Okay. Let's go to, yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to test our voting devices.
Okay, everyone should have received their itemized, personalized clicker, electronic voting device when they checked in. Town meeting voted this 2 years ago to give another option for our town meeting representatives to vote. Dan Driscoll, during the night, will decide which votes are going to be with the electronic voting or if they go to a voice vote. And he'll let us know from the article, the beginning of the article. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do a couple of test questions, similar to what we did at the fall town meeting when we did not get them working on time. So it's very simple. The first question is going to be, will the town clerk get the clickers, electronic voting devices to work? So everybody has, as they've said, they have a choice. It's only 2 choices on your electronic voting device. Green, 1A, is for yes. Red, 2B, is no. This is not, these are radio frequency. There's no internet with this, so we don't have to worry about you getting internet or not. So the radio frequencies. Every vote that we take tonight, you'll have 10 seconds to vote. Okay, your last vote before the moderator closes the vote will be the vote that is recorded. He will not, the devices will not work until the moderator says vote is open. So at this time, we're going to open the vote. Will the town clerk get your electronic voting devices to work? Remember, green is yes, red is no. I will not be insulted if you vote no. It's testing and out. The votes that will be tallied for the other warrant articles, unless it goes to a roll call vote, will just give the quantum vote, will not give a grid vote. Okay, the vote is now closed. And that is the total. So how does everyone feel? Okay? A little bit more confidence? All right, good. All right. I redeemed myself. One more. I'm going to do one more. Sorry. I'm on a redemption tour.
Keep going.
Do you feel comfortable using the electronic voting devices? Same thing, once again, this is a grid vote. This is just so we can see, take a look at your voting devices. One, it's green is yes, red 2 is no. Those are your 2 votes. If you don't want to vote, just leave it blank. Your last vote before we close the vote is the vote that will be used. The vote will not work until the moderator says the vote is open. If you have a problem, just let us know, and we'll have one of the staff in the back work with you if the battery, but we all tested this. Yep, sir. No, you just have to push the button. It should say okay once you pushed it. Looking around. Okay, we're going to close the vote. Yep, close the vote. I appreciate your patience with this. Okay, and that's the way the total. Once again, when the warrant articles come up, unless it's a roll call vote, it will say that.
Will they get the text up the screen in the upper left? It appears with the questions.
I don't think we know how to get that off.
I don't think we're going to be able to get that off. But we'll try to do the best we can. I think we put the font for the quantum votes are larger, so it'll be a little bit different than this. So hopefully that'll help. Once again, I thank you for your patience. I apologize for the inconvenience at the last one. Yes, Dave. Just go to the back of the hall, and we'll take care of that right for you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and like I said, I apologize for the inconvenience. Did you push it again? Did we already close the vote in one show, right? It's not going to close. It's not going to pop up now because we closed the vote. Does it, when you push it on, does it say okay?
You want me to do, duplicate it and we can run it again?
Mary Ann, test your. You're good now? Okay. Once again, the vote won't, once the vote is open, once it's closed, it won't show up. So Mary Ann, you're all set? So we just have Dave. Okay, thank you.
I think she just said it worked.
Mary Ann said it works, so it's just Dave. So we need Dave, yes.
I think Mike went.
Yeah, Mike went over. What's the last name first?
He's all set.
Okay. I'm told they're all working, so let's proceed. So again, I'm going to read each article and each budget line item. If you'd like to question, comment, or amend, call out the word pass. And by the way, as a general rule, it's better to call out pass if you think you want to do it, and then when we come back to it, if you've changed your mind, we just, we don't know who says pass, so there's no stigma with that. Okay, we're on page 4, Article 1, but that's the election of officials. So moving to Article 2, the chair passes Article 2. We have an original motion coming from Finance and Warrant. Article 3, we're going to read each line. Line 1, we're under Town Manager on page 7. Line 1, 2, 3, 4. Line 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, under Technology Department 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, Central Purchasing 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, Human Resources 29, 30, and 31. Now we're on the reprinted page. The only difference is you'll see a green box. In the original one, there was a deduction made in that budget, and it was entered twice. So that number didn't change the overall cost of running town government, which is on the last page. But Article 3, line 32, Town Clerk's Office, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. 36 pass. Yep, got it. Thank you, sir. Is 37 getting passed too? Or was that an echo? 37, okay. 38, 39. Under the Police Department, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, Dispatch, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, and 57. Going on to page 9, again, the corrected page 9. Line item number 58, Building Inspection, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63, 64, 65, 66, Dedham Public Schools. There are 3 line items that we vote. Line item 67, which is the total cost of the Dedham Public School System. Pass. Line 68, Norfolk Agricultural School, and line 69, which is the Blue Hill Regional School District. Under engineering, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 75, personnel services is passed, 76, 77, 78, 79, and 80. On page 10, at the top of the page, 81, 82, Facilities Department, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89. 89, operating capital passed. Thank you. Board of Health, 90, 91, 92, 93, and 94. Council on Aging, 95, 96, 97, 98. Youth Commission, 99, 100, 101, 102. Top of page 11, page 103, line item 103, 104, 105, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, and 118. Endicott Estate, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124. Bottom of the page, 125, total debt service. And on page 12, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134. Okay. Moving on to Article 4. On page 14 is the capital improvements budget. Line item 1, 2, 3, 4. Pass on 4. 5, 6, 7. 8. 8 is passed. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Sewer, 16 and 17. Passed 17. 18, 19, 20, 21, 21. Passed. 22, 23, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Okay, we're on page 15 now. We're back to the articles. Article 5. Article 6. Article 7. Article 8. Article 9. Article 10. Article 11. Article 12. My phone's going off. If you're texting me, I'm not going to be able to see it, so you're better off calling a point of order or something. I don't think you want me to stop every time my phone goes off. Article 12, reports of committees. Yeah. Yeah. 13, 14, 15, 16. I heard a soft pass. Which article was that, sir? 16 or 15? 15. Thank you. Okay. 16. 17. 17 is passed. 18 is passed by the chair. Okay. Now we're going to read that list, and if we miss something, please let us know. This recap process is a recommendation from Demetra Sullivan a number of years ago, and it's a very good idea. Thank you. It's important we get this right because we're going to vote the original motion on everything that was not passed, which means it's pretty much off the table unless you can get this group to reconsider it, which isn't always easy.
Passed on Article 6, 15 and 16.
Let's see if we have those. You want to pass on 6. And you want to pass Articles 15 and 16, is that correct?
No, Section 15 and 16 of Article 6. Or line 15 and 16.
Well, we'll pass the article and then,
Thank you.
because we don't do those one by one. Pass on 13, is that right? Okay. All righty. 13 is passed. Article 13 on page 22. Anything else? Point of order. State your point of order. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Can you get up to the microphone, please, Mary?
Just want to pass on Article 3, line 6.
Article 3,
Line 6.
budget line 6. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, here's what we have. Passing Article 2, under 3, which is the budget, line items 1, 36, 37.
No, she just,
Line item 6 in Article 3 or Article 6? Line 6 in Article 3. All right, Article 3, lines 1, 6, 36, 37, 67, 75, 89, 128, and 129. And Article 4, 8. So we did not pass Article 6, is that right, Mr. Polito? Did somebody pass Article 6?
Line 15 and 16, I believe.
Article 4, Article 6. Okay, okay, all right. Within Article 4, the line items passed are 4, 8, 17, 21, and 23. Now, moving out of Article 4, we're passed on Article 6, 12, 13, 15. We passed 6, 12, 13, 15, 17, and 18. In, no, we're doing articles now, Jim, so. No, thanks, Mr. Moore. So Article 16, was that passed? No. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the original motion as proposed by the Finance and Warrant Committee on all articles and budget line items not passed. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Article 2, Chair calls upon the Chairman of the Finance and Warrant Committee to present the original motion on Article 2. Mr. Roberts.
Sorry, it's Vice Chair Michelle
Mr.
Pearson
Vice
Riley.
Chair. Madam Vice Chair. Ms. Person Riley.
About Article 2, we just wanted to note that the Finance and Warrant Committee just voted this article immediately prior to this meeting. So the recommendation is in your handout, not in the book. In addition to approving the settled labor agreements, this article includes $394,000 to fund those agreements, which is in addition to the salary reserve amount that's already in Article 3. So we just want to confirm that the memo that the Finance and Warrant Committee distributed to the town meeting members through the precinct chairs did in fact already take this figure into account. So the estimates in that memo related to excess levy and impact on average residential tax bill do take into account the amounts both in Article 3 and in Article 2.
By the way, when we talk about estimates to the increase in the average single-family tax bill, that's assuming you voted the Finance and Warrant Committee recommendations. If money is added or subtracted, then the impact on the average single-family tax bill goes up or down, so we know that. Any questions on Article 2? Mr. Keeney.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Brian Keeney. I live at 183 Grant Ave. And it seems like every town meeting that there's a contract to vote on, I get up and I remind people that Section 85-6 of our bylaws prohibits town meetings from voting on these unless people get the information 2 weeks in advance. Most of this was in advance. This yellow sheet did not come to people 2 weeks in advance. That bylaw's in there for a reason. And it is not fair to ask this body to vote on things without having enough time to review it. And And I think of the case, and I think it was Methuen 3 or 4 years ago, where the police contract was approved by their city council with less than 60 seconds worth of review. It came in, it crossed their desk, all in favor, aye, and that was it. That resulted in the police chief getting some astronomical, I think he was the highest paid police chief in the country for the city of Methuen. Some of the officers, some of the senior officers got 189% pay increases. I have not had any time to review this. I don't think anyone else in the room has. It is not fair to ask town meeting to vote on it, and that is why we have bylaw 85-6. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Chair recognizes Assistant Town Manager Nancy Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nancy Baker, Assistant Town Manager. The supplements for the contracts that have been resolved were mailed the same day that your books were mailed. So town meeting members have had the benefit of that information since either Saturday, May 4th or Monday, May 6th, which meets the 2-week requirement in the bylaw.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 2? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Town clerk would like to test the clickers one more time.
Okay, just to double check some of the clickers for some of the town meeting representatives. There was a couple. I apologize for the blind side if you can't see your name up there, but we'll double check. At this time, I'm going to open the vote. Just test your clickers. 1 yes, 2 no. Red. Again. Code Boudreaux's is not posted out. Mike, yeah, Mike. Code Boudreaux's is not. And Gemma, yours isn't going? Billy, did you vote? Your name's not going. Just go to the back. Huh? There's two of them right there. You haven't closed the vote. Keep scrolling it. Go back to Billy. Yeah. And go to find Gemma Martin. Kristen, she was precinct 5. Nope, Gemma's not. And Steve Casparo. You don't see your name, just go to the back, we'll get you a new clicker. Once again, just be patient. We just want to clear up the 3 that didn't, their names, their clickers are not working.
Mrs. Keough?
Bissonette's here.
Yeah, so the problem is fast house. So either someone doing the wrong one or we have one. Clicker's working, and I think that's what's happening with it. That's how our clicker's working. But they're,
Okay.
so not everything.
Okay.
And the roll from 4. These rolls ones, they're all from 4, right? I don't know all there's no fast, control.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to do. We've voted the omnibus motion and we voted Article 2. We're going to start the discussion on Article 3 and give these gentlemen a few minutes to... They're zeroing in on the problem. There seems to be some mix-up in who's got which clicker, actually. So, under the town manager's line on page 7, Article 1 has been passed. Are there people wishing to speak on Article 1? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Diane McLeish, Precinct 5. The budget on item 1 looks like it has doubled. Can they explain why?
Sure. Town manager Leon Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, Leon Goodwin, town manager. Line 1 not only includes the cost of the salaries of the folks who work in the town manager's office, but that also includes the so-called salary reserve line, which is what we use to fund contracts and other personnel costs throughout the year. So this year, we had budgeted $900,000 in there. As part of Article 2, you all voted to approve the expenditure and transfer of those funds from the line 1 here, as well as adding the additional $394,000 to fund the contracts and the personnel changes in proposed FY25.
Is that clear to everyone? Good. Okay. We're going to have to go back and vote on the original motion on that, but to keep the meeting going, I'm going to move to discussion on line 6, litigation and judgment. So the people wishing to speak on that.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mary Gilbert, Precinct 4. I just want a clearer understanding of, it says judgments, litigation, 25,000. We have lost a recent case, and I believe it's around 5 million. I don't know where that's allocated or how you're planning to allocate it.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Mr. Goodwin.
Hello again, Leon Goodwin, town manager. This line item in particular is meant to cover small judgments and small litigation costs. The lawsuit that Ms. Gilbert is mentioning there was a verdict in that case, but we are still awaiting post-trial motions to be heard, and we're waiting on a decision from the judge as well. So there is no final number. Something large to the tune of what you're discussing, which is the very, very, very worst case scenario, would be something that we would have to appropriate via other means.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Further questions or comments? Again, we will come back to vote the original motion amount on that line. And that is line 6. Line 36 in the planning department. Here recognizes Mr. Tom Polito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had submitted a substitute article on line item 36. What I'm recommending to do is the assistant director, planning director, hasn't been filled in over 6 months. They've advertised twice, and they can't seem to fill with the amount of money. Other towns in the area have the same issue. So like the town manager didn't recommend it for July 1st. The finance committee did on a split vote. So I'd like to eliminate the position for now, and I get the motion to come back in the fall or spring with a reorg plan. Because when you have a job open, it's the best time to reorganize the department. One job is open now, and the other one is filled, but by just a gentleman who's been there for 2 years. So I want the planning board to get involved in the discussion, to come back with the planning board recommendation to the town manager, who in turn come to town meeting. They might keep 3 people there, they might only want 2. But, you know, it's a time to reorganize it when a job is open. So I'd like to recommend to decrease line item 36 by $88,770, which is her pay. Eliminate the assistant planning job to 88 minus 88,770.
Mr. Polito, town meeting's role is limited to debating the entire line, which is
Right.
called personnel
Well,
services.
I'm sorry, decrease it to 389,153.
All right.
That eliminates that job, but I'm eliminating the 88,000
Mr. Polito,
position.
just let me finish my thought
Okay.
before I forget it. Your proposal is to decrease that with the idea of eliminating a particular position.
They can do that, we can't do that.
You cannot do that, I cannot do that.
Right.
Only they can do that. I'm going to ask town council Lauren Goldberg.
But I'm just
to
bringing it
explain.
to 389, I'm lowering that line item.
You
to
can lower the line item,
389,153.
but we can't direct what the impact of that is. It may or may not be the one you're looking for.
Well,
So we don't have that authority. Let's have Ms. Goldberg address that for us.
Mr. Moderator, through you. Yeah, so town meeting is voting on the particular lines that are shown in the budget that's contained in your warrant book and not on individual positions. If the town meeting were to vote to reduce that personnel services line item by the $89,000 approximately, that would mean there was approximate 9,000 fewer dollars for that department, but it would not mean that that particular position was automatically eliminated.
Thank you.
Correct, that's what I was trying to do, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Polito, direct all your questions to the chair, please.
Okay, yeah,
to the
that was
town
trying to do,
council.
Mr. Moderator.
I'm sorry?
I was trying to do the same thing what she just said. I'm saying, you know, reduce the line item to 389,153, and let the planning board make that decision.
You can move to decrease the line item. Yes.
That's what I just did.
Okay. But
You guys-
understand, we're not talking about a specific
No, I'm
position.
not, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, very good.
I just sent you an email to the town clerk about this.
No, you're entitled to give your reason behind
Yeah,
it. Your
right.
reason behind it is that position,
Yeah,
but that's
okay.
not what town meeting's voting.
Okay, I
That's the
understand.
distinction, sure.
That's my motion, please.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, now, we got to get the voting straightened out before we do that. Well, let's do an old-fashioned, try a voice vote. If that doesn't work, we'll do a standing vote. All those in favor of Mr. Polito's motion to decrease the personnel services line of the planning department by $88,770, resulting in a new original motion, or a substitute motion for that line of $389,153. So does everybody understand? A yes vote is a vote to eliminate that money, that amount of money, not the job title, that amount of money from the department. Are there any questions on what you're voting on? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The noes have it. Well, you know the rules by now. If there are 7 people who doubt the voice vote, all you have to do is stand up. We'll do a standing vote. Okay, there are 7. All those who are in favor of the motion to cut the personnel services line of the planning department by $88,770. Please stand, remain standing until you're counted. Yeah, I'm with you. We didn't think we'd need tellers, but we have them. On the left side, April Wilmar and Jim Driscoll. In the middle, that's left, this side, my left. Molly Uppenkamp, Christy Gorelli and Jean Zeiler, and on the right side, Jim Sullivan and Meg Duncan. Those are the district chairs. Left, Ms. Wilmar and Jim Driscoll. In the middle, Ms. Uppenkamp, Ms. Gorelli, and Ms. Zeiler. And on the right, Mr. Sullivan and Ms. Duncan. So you count them individually, you compare your notes. Hopefully you get the same number.
Mr. Moderator, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Can we do this with a clicker?
We're trying to fix the clickers. That's the
Oh,
whole
okay.
idea. Yeah. There's a couple of clickers that are not clicking. Mr. Keeney has pointed out correctly so that ordinarily we vote on the higher amount first. The higher amount would have been the original one. But we'll continue. It'll get there in the end, same place. Okay. Thank you. Please be seated. All those who are opposed to the motion to reduce the money as discussed, please stand and remain standing until you're counted. Thank you. You may be seated. "84 town meeting representatives having voted in favor of reducing the budget and 145 being opposed, the motion fails. The vote comes on the original motion as published in the book. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Line item 37, purchase of service.
Mary Ann Martin, Precinct 5. Could someone explain to me how it's going from a 65.7 to a 121 end result?
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodwin?
Hello, Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. The difference is that we are appropriating funding for a grant match for a housing study. Generally, this line is used to pay for professional consultants and also grant matches. And in this case, we know we've received a grant and we are funding the required match and will be reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Ms. Martin?
Hi, Mary Ann Martin, still from Precinct 5. Could you just explain what that grant was? I haven't heard of that. It's just appealing. I'd like to know what it is.
Sure, it's a housing grant. They'll appropriate $50,000 for us to study means of addressing the housing shortage in the town of Dedham, looking at things like ADUs, other alternative housing options for folks.
Thank you. Further questions? Hearing none, the vote comes on the original motion amount. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Line item 67, which is on page 9. Mr. Driscoll. Chief Driscoll.
Jim Driscoll, District 4. My question is the same as it was at the mini-town meeting. It has to do with the position of Director of Teaching and Learning, which at the present time is vacant. The Superintendent of Schools indicated that there was a plan. Classroom teachers and aides, librarians, and people of that nature who work directly with the students. You should leave the Director of Teaching and Learning position vacant and apply that to the people who are getting laid off. Is there any comment from the Superintendent of Schools or the school committee?
Thank you, Chief Driscoll. Chair recognizes the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nan Murphy, Superintendent of Schools. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll use my teacher voice.
We have to get very, very close to these microphones.
All right, so thank you for the question. The position of the Director of Teaching and Learning is not vacant. It is currently held by Dr. Heather Smith, who has recently accepted the position of Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, which has been vacant as a in order to consolidate some resources this year once Dr. Kelly was transitioned over to his new role in the Office of Finance and Operations. The Director of Teaching and Learning is responsible for one of two people who is responsible for offering professional development and coaching to over 460 adults who have student-facing positions in the district. So we are contractually obligated to provide professional development, and this is one of two positions that will work directly with our teachers in bringing about the most innovative and supportive instructional shifts to the best of kids, for kids' experiences.
Thank you,
Okay,
Superintendent.
I guess I misunderstood what you said last week.
Chief, Mr. Driscoll, you've got to be recognized again. We don't encourage a cross-examination of people.
All
So,
right, maybe I misunderstood. I was under the impression that the position was vacant and you were in the process of interviewing people and hiring and filling that position. Am I correct on that, or am I wrong?
Thank you, Chief. Superintendent?
The position will be vacant when Dr. Smith accepts her full-time position as Assistant Superintendent on July 1st. We did interview and have hired somebody for that position.
So is that clear? Position was vacant, someone's been hired to fill it. Is that
The
fair?
position has never been vacant. It is still held and will be held until June 30th by Dr. Heather Smith, who on July 1st will be starting a new role as Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, which will then vacate the director position, and the new person will start on July 1st.
Okay, but has
Mr.
a new
Driscoll,
person...
Mr. Driscoll, let's let the next speaker speak, and if you still have a question, then you should ask to be recognized. Go ahead, ma'am.
Christina Pendleton, Precinct 7. I just want to ask to remind everybody to not use acronyms that people might not understand. That just happened with the last article. I didn't know what one of the acronyms was. And certainly with all the new people who are here, it's especially important, I think, to make sure that we're not using jargon and not using acronyms. Thank you.
That's fine. And by the way, you always have the point of order privilege. You can interrupt the speaker with a point of order, and if somebody's talking in a language you don't understand, just rise and say point of order and say, please explain what that acronym means. Just pull it and the train stops. We answer you and the train goes. Okay. Did you want to speak again, Mr. Driscoll?
I'm still don't quite understand. I understand that the position, the money for the Director of Teaching and Learning doesn't become available until July 1st. But the person who currently holds the position right now today is supposed to be leaving to get this new job. Now, when I asked questions last week, I was under the impression that at the present time, not the present time, but on July 1st, the position of Director of Teaching and Learning would be vacant, and that the school department was in the process of interviewing a new person. Now, has that new person already been hired for July 1st?
Nan Murphy, Superintendent, yes, that person has been hired. That person is Ed Paris, who is currently the principal of the Avery School.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. LaPrade?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Lisa LaPrade, Precinct 7. I would just like to stress how important these administrative roles are for our district. For many years, we did not fund these positions in our school department, and that's what led us to a situation where we had different teaching happening at different schools throughout the district, and it wasn't until we made an investment in these positions that we really started to unify what was happening across the different schools in the district. So I would just like to stand up in support of this position. If you don't have these positions, it's like taking the wheels off your car. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prize, a former chair of the Dedham School Committee. Anybody else wishing to speak on this line? If not, the vote comes on the original motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And whenever we say the original motion, it's the one that's printed in the last column under fiscal year 2025 FWC Finance Warrant Committee. That's always the original motion. Line 75, personnel services in the Public Works Department. Ms. Martin.
Mary Ann Martin, Precinct 5. I notice there's a reduction in the personnel department, and I know that that's, well, actually, my question is that the summer labor that we normally hire year in, year out?
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin?
Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. The speaker was correct that it represents the summer temporary workers as well as the special motor equipment operator position and the foreman position, which are currently vacant and which were part of the reductions recommended by the Finance and Warrant Committee.
Thank you. Mr. Polito.
Moderator, I submit a substitute motion for for line item number 75 to increase that line item to $1,163,763. And what that article is to bring back, Mike, can't bring it back, but the suggestion that there was 20 employees there before, take it down to 18 now, get rid of the summer help, and you want the town to be beautified and cemetery cleaned up all the time. Well, with all this less help now, people want the town beautiful. We're going to lose 2 employees, plus some help, plus when you do snow plowing, these trucks will be sitting idle in the garage with the highest snow plows at $100 to $150 an hour. So I would just like to raise that line item to the 161,763, which is basically adding the two employees that they asked for back, not the summer help, the 2 employees that Leon just mentioned. That's the salaries that was budgeted for those 2 gentlemen.
So just to help us all here, on line 75, it's currently $1,807,963.
You're going to add $155,800 to it.
Okay, great.
That's the salary of 2 employees.
Okay.
They can do what they want with it, but
yeah. Okay. I feel compelled just to, because we want to be clear what you can do and what you can't do. And next year, if you find out that you voted money and it wasn't spent the way that you thought it was, we just have to be.
I'm just using the money, Mr. Moderator, that.
You're giving your rationale for it,
yeah.
But I'm going to ask the town council, when a personnel budget is increased, what's the impact of that, either necessarily or aspirationally?
Mr. Moderator, through you, Lauren Goldberg. If this line item were increased, it would add $155,800 to the total line item and make that money available for the hiring of additional staff, but it would not mandate that staff be hired. That would still be a decision for the town.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I know you understand that, Mr. Polito, but I just want to be sure that we have a lot of new members, and so town meeting can't designate positions to be put back in a town budget. They can increase the money, and they can express their wish. This is what we hope the money will be spent for, but then there's a period at that sentence. There's not necessarily a requirement on the part of the administrative part of town to spend it in that way, or to spend it at all, frankly.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Hart?
Dan Hart, Precinct 6. Just a point of order. The legal counsel said that would be a decision by the town. Who's the town?
The executive branch.
Which is
Select board, town manager.
So it would go to the select board. It would not rest with the town manager.
Well,
Mr. Moderator, through you. That decision would be a town manager decision, as he's responsible for the operations on the day-to-day.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Polito.
Just to get a little more point, why are the 2 employees? Yeah, we We have a year-round, there's 18 employees, minus 2 now, there's 18 out of 20. And sometimes, a lot of employees in construction business get hurt. So sometimes there's always 1 or 2 out all the time. One day, recently, there was 12 or 13 in the whole department. So I'm saying, so you can't clean the town. Every once in a town, beautiful, trees taken care of, grass cut, with 2 less employees and no summer help. This won't happen. I'd like to see their budget increase to make the town more beautiful over the summertime. Thank you.
Thank you. While this speaker is speaking, could someone from the town add those numbers together so we have a final number, and I don't have to try to do it here in between speakers? 155.80 plus the original motion. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Adam Chapdelaine, Precinct 1. Could I ask through you, Mr. Moderator, the town manager, if this motion was approved, what he would likely do with the funds, if he would think he would restore those 2 positions?
Thank you, Mr. Chapdelaine. Mr. Goodwin.
Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. Thank you for the question. I would likely fill the positions if this substitute would be approved by town meeting.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Martin.
Mary Ann Martin, Precinct 5. I would like to ask if, I want to make sure I phrase this right. So we just took a vote to maintain a budget in the planning department, but when the town council spoke, she did say that there would be all executive personnel decisions are done at the executive level. Is there any way that if the positions at the planning department weren't full, could that money be used to reinstate maybe the positions in the DPW?
No, without a vote at town meeting. Town meeting would have to vote to approve a transfer from line X to line Y. Can't be done administratively.
Well, then, now I'm even more confused. So we vote this money, it would stay in the department
Yes.
we voted in, and then
Yes.
they can decide how to use it within
Yes.
that department?
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Other speakers? Mr. Carmen Dello Iacano, one of the 3 Dello Iacano brothers in town meeting now.
We are here too. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, members of town meeting. Mr. Moderator, I will say for the record, you are certainly dapper tonight. As you stated earlier, you get dressed up just to be seen.
It is getting kind of hot, Carmen, so if you could kind of speed it up a little.
I will. With this, I've worked with Mr. Polito in the past on the Board of Selectmen, and we've seen this happen before where something's not funded, and you just can't get it back. It's a fight to get stuff back. So if this money, as he is recommending, which I do support, is put into the fund, and Mr. Goodwin, it just acknowledged the fact that he would fill those positions, it's a good thing. And if not, the money sits till the next time where it can be discussed again on this floor. As Mr. Goodwin stated when he first got up, this decision was from FinCom, and I get it. FinCom's done their due diligence. They've done a great job on their report to us. And if you notice, there's a lot of numbers that are negatives. So there's been cuts, and this is just part of it. We have a great DPW department. They're out there every day. You can see them. Mr. Flanagan's department, they work, and our town looks great. So I just want to support Mr. Polito's substitute motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dello Iacano.
Hi, moderator, and thank you to the Finance Committee. You do such an awesome job for us. But this is one that Teresa O'Connor Heisler, Precinct 3, 27 Meadow Street. This is one that I'm very disappointed to hear because, like Carmen just said, the town, we can't praise the DPW enough. You know, we have had so many projects being done where you see it's them. It's them, and there's not enough of them. We know what it's like to take care of our little backyards and our hedges, and even with that number of staff, it's not enough. And when people call out sick, if someone has a death in their family, whew, I don't know how you manage it if you can't rely on the town voters to say, hey, they need those 2 spots. Once they lose them, it's just like prices. Prices don't go down. They keep going up. They need those 2 positions, and that summer help, I can't tell you For someone who has worked with youth for a lot of years in my life, I've seen a lot of summer help through the years, including my son one year, and he came down our street to pick up a dead rat. Not a dead rat, I'm sorry. It was a skunk, a rabid skunk that was crazy on the street. And he had another, young guy with him. And I was like, wow, that's not a job anybody wants to do. It was a rabid skunk. And I can't thank the DPW enough. So the summer help, when I see them cleaning along Mother Brook, all the high weeds that are up, to your knees, and I see them at the cemeteries, at the roadways, we need the help. So I hope that we get the money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vivian Daly, Precinct 2, Town Meeting Member, 107 Ames Street. I was hoping that the Finance and Warrant Committee could maybe just speak to what this increase would mean for the town finances.
Thank you, Ms. Daly.
Thank you.
Town manager is going to answer that question, Ms. Daly.
Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. I'll get to that question, but I did want to, if Mr. Moderator, you may indulge me for one moment, I wanted to explain a little bit about the process that the Finance and Warrant Committee went through in order to identify. I think we all agree that all of our town employees are doing good work for the town, that we see and appreciate. DPW's among them. We gave the Finance and Warrant Committee a list of vacant positions, and that's how they arrived at the savings that they voted on. And it wasn't particular, they weren't picking out, it was happenstance that those happened to be vacant positions at the time. So I don't think it reflects on any department, and it certainly doesn't reflect, I think, on the value that the Finance and Warrant Committee places on any position or department. It just happened to be that those were vacant, and we thought that that would be the least painful way of reducing the budget to try to respond to the taxpayers who are saying, hey, our tax bills are going up too fast, can you do something about it? And so that's a way that we, knowing that there would be some pain felt in various departments, we also had a discussion with the Finance and Warrant Committee that we could, again, with town meeting's ultimate blessing on it, move monies around potentially between departments based on our view of where we saw the finances going throughout the year. So I just wanted to say that out front. With regard to the question, if we're adding about $155,000, I think we've previously said about a $500,000 increase in the levy would be just over $40. So you're talking over $10, but not significantly more than that. So in that game, we can probably get a better estimate now that my team's had time to work on it. But $14 they're saying. So you're looking at about $14 on the average single-family tax bill.
Mr. Szyszewski.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Andrew Shajasti, Precinct 7. Yes, my only concern here is that we just voted against bringing back $80,000 to the budget. Now we're asking to put in $155,000. And I understand this is an important position, I have no doubt about it, but a lot of people here are campaigning on lowering the budget, stuff like that, and now we have this coming on. So my only thing is we can't have it both ways. Can't say we want to keep this thing, don't decrease in $88,000, but add another $155,000. And that's my concern. I don't think we have to cut somewhere, and unfortunately, I do think the Finance Committee did a good job in analyzing which need priority. So for that reason, I can't support this motion.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Nicole Tenorman, Precinct 3. I appreciated the town manager's comments, and I think just a general comment that I've heard from the cost drivers from many different departments, and I respect the previous town meeting comment around budget cuts, and I also think for all of us as town residents and representatives, we need to respect that prices are going up, as a previous town meeting member said. And so at some point, I think we need to acknowledge if we want the cemeteries to look nice, or we want teachers in our schools, that taxes are going to go up, or if we want to maintain the quality of the town that we live in. And that's my opinion, and I know that may not be popular, but I think we need to respect, I want to balance the affordability of the town of Dedham with also the fact that these are cost drivers that we feel in every aspect of our lives. All of us feel them, and so I appreciate the work of the Finance and Warrant Committee in respecting that. I think this will continue to be something that's going to be coming up for the future meetings that we want to think about as town meeting members.
Thank you. Thank you. Further discussions on line item 75. No, you go for, no. Then Mrs. Keo.
Thank you. Kristen Relier, Precinct 4. I guess I just want to call out that we did just kind of, in a blink of an eye, decide to cut 14 teachers. And I don't think that that is an easy decision to make. And I think a lot of us would have preferred to do something different, but we're recognizing that we're in a time when these costs are increasing and we need to be fiscally responsible to avoid significant tax increases for the town. So I'm having a hard time with this one because I think, like, while I respect and understand the position put forth to, continue to maintain the town, if we were just talking about putting that back into the school, for example, which we're not, I probably would have been more supportive of that. So I just want us to think about, if we're really doing the hard work to find areas to make sacrifices and be creative to find those, to lower the tax bill, which is, I think, a lot of people in this room are wanting to do, we might want to take the recommendation of FinCom. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Daly? No, Mrs. Keo and then Ms. Daly. Yes, Mrs. Keo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think summer help for the DPW is a very wise investment. We get more than our money's worth from those young people. And they say details are important. And I think we get some details by hiring these young people. For example, sweeping at the cemetery, cleaning around the monuments, other details that just can't be accomplished because of time and personnel throughout the year. So I hope this body will vote for summer help for the DPW. I think the commissioner would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Keo. Ms. Daly?
Vivian Daly, P2, town meeting member. I guess a point of clarification, I just want to make sure I understand. So our unused tax levy capacity is at 1.5 million roughly. So if we go above that in future years, that means that it would be a town-wide vote to increase taxes. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's the broad outlines. I think I'll ask Mr. Goodwin to flesh that out just a bit, or the town council, whichever. So the question is that when we hit the tax levy, what's the implications for budgeting when we're at the tax levy?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, through you. The town has the ability to levy up to the tax limit, and then at that point, if we were to hit the levy limit, we would have to either reduce other expenditures or approve an override to allow us to go over that amount.
And an override is approved how?
It would have to be approved here at town meeting and at the polls by the voters.
Okay, thank you. Two-step, thank you. So is that clear? So Dedham has been far below the levy limit for a very long time. And we're approaching the levy limit, so that's why this whole, you haven't heard us talk too much about levy limit in the past, but the levy limit now has come into play as a consideration. The vote is still yours, the decision is still yours, but to have all the facts.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Polito.
Yes, the part of that article was when I passed on line item 129. So to make the budget not any increase, I was going to decrease the OPEC account by the $155,800. The town manager had recommended $250,000 for the OPEC account, and the finance committee up it to $500,000 on a split vote. So by decreasing that, we're still at our schedule to pay back the OPEC. Every town is millions and millions and millions on the whole, but we're still, by giving the $300,000, we're still on our schedule. So that's where the money was. I didn't want to raise taxes, so I'll just take out of one account, put another account. So OPEC was scheduled by town manager recommended $250. The finance committee changed it to $500. So I want to take the $155. It's a different vote, but that's where I was going to take the money from. Take $155 from the OPEC. So the OPEC will have about $300,000 going into it, about $350 instead of the $500.
Okay.
That's what I was going. So that's another article later on I was going to do. So that's where the money was going to come from. So I wasn't going to increase taxes on this issue. Thank you.
OPEB has nothing to do with oil in the Middle East. We're going to ask the Chairman of Finance and Warrant to define OPEB for us.
Other post-employee benefits is what OPEB is, and it's a requirement that we pay into this. Not a requirement, but it is advisable because the costs go up, and if we fall too far behind on our OPEB responsibilities, it's an even larger amount that we have to pass and pay. One correction to Mr. What was said. The town manager budget recommendation was $750,000 for OPEB. Finance and Warrant Committee recommendation is $500,000.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Yes, sir.
Sean Dolan, Precinct 4. I just want a point of clarification. Are we talking about summer help or restoring these two positions? It's the two ideas.
All three are tied together in this.
Okay, so that number comes to 155,800. That includes summer help?
Wait, I'm being corrected. Mr. Goodwin, we've got conflicting.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My understanding from Mr. Polito is that he the 155 number represents the two full-time positions. It does not represent the summer help. But again, as we've discussed, town meeting votes on the personnel line, not individual positions. But that's my understanding from what Mr. Polito has put forth.
That's right, Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
That's what basically meant, but the town manager can not hire one person and put more summer help on. So it's their decision. As you say before, I can't do the positions, but the money. So the 155 was those two positions, but if he feels he wants summer help, and maybe not hire a person till the end of the year, along with it was the 155, he can do that.
Yes.
Right? And the other thing is, it was 750, but when he had to make a budget cut, it went down to 250. Then they raised it to 5. So it did go from 750 to 250 to 500. 500 at the end, but he did recommend 250 at one time, and went up to 5. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Daniel Mungin, Precinct 2. Move the question.
Move the question. So move the question means we stop debate. We go immediately to a vote on, as Mr. Keeney pointed out, my error, to the higher amount. In this case, the higher amount is Mr. Polito's.
When are we going to use the clickers?
We're going to use the clickers as soon as I'm told that they're ready to go, Ms. Carney.
Okay.
And not right in the middle of one article that we're discussing. It'll be on a new line item, new article. Where was I? Okay. So we've moved the question. It takes a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Okay, debate is stopped. Now we will vote on the higher amount. Mr. Polito's recommendation is the higher amount. His amount for line 75 on page 9 is $1,963,763. That's what you're voting on. You'll see that the number currently is $1,807,963. So is that clear? Now he tells me we can use the clickers. Okay. Well, you threw me under the bus with Ms. Carney. Yeah, you did that, but that's okay. We've known each other a long time. Okay, so we're going to use the clickers. If you are in favor of the higher amount, using your clickers, vote yes. If you are opposed to the higher amount, vote no. The vote is open. Vote is closed. $150 people have voted to not increase the line item above the amount that's published in the book, and 88 have voted yes. So the motion, the higher motion fails. The vote no comes on the original motion, which is the $1,807,963. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Line item 128, health insurance. Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading off Mr. Polito's next motion is that. But there are other people besides Mr. Okay. 89, line item 89. Operating capital in the facilities, town facilities budget. Ms. Martin.
More of a point of clarification, could someone tell this group what operating capital is? And then could you tell me what $320,000 of operating, oh wait, it's less, $275,000 of operating capital is? Thank you.
Mr. Goodwin.
Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. So at a very high level, operating capital is a capital item which recurs typically year after year within a department's operating plan. So in this case, for the facilities department, we have vehicle lease, vehicle replacement, as well as a service that we're calling House Doctor, but it's essentially a professional services line whereby the facilities department can hire out engineering, architects, et cetera, that can help us better plan and promote projects and bring better information to the Finance and Warrant Committee as well as the town meeting.
Thank you. Any further questions on 89? If not, the vote comes on the original motion. We'll do this by voice. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. By the way, I use a voice vote when it's clear that there's not a lot of division on the question. It's just a little bit quicker than the clicker. Let's take this opportunity to go back to page 7 and vote the two line items that we discussed but could not vote on because we were repairing things up here on the clicker. So this would be on page 7, line item 1, personnel services, Finance Warrant Committee recommendation 1.653170. That includes the town manager's staff as well as the salary reserve, as was explained. Any questions on 1? All in favor of the original motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Line 6 was a question about litigation and judgments. The original motion is $25,000. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. We go to line 128, health insurance. There being no discussion on 128, the vote comes on the original motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. 129. OPEB liability contribution. Is there discussion? There being none, the vote comes on the original motion as printed in the book of $500,000. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Now we move to Article 4, And in particular, there are, if you look at the chart, there's 29 projects listed, and I'm not going to ask what that was. Article 4, we have several of these to be discussed. The first is line item 4 in the fire department, thermal imaging cameras. Mr. Dello Iacono.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Members of the town meeting, I did offer a substitute motion on this, and if you were at Mini last week, I did explain about this. In the town of Dedham, we have 4 groups in the fire department, and also I said last week, hopefully you never meet any of the people from the fire department or the police, because if they're at your home, there's a problem. But if they're coming to your home, you want them to have state-of-the-art equipment, and that's plain and simple. So what this, and there was a good explanation last week by Mr. Goodwin, but we're talking about $22,000. So they asked for $44,000, which is 4 brand-new state-of-the-art cameras, and the cameras are allowed to see through walls to see where the issues are. I've been out on calls at night, and these cameras work phenomenal. But it's only enough funding for 2 groups. That means 2 groups are going to maintain the older equipment. Might still work, but it's not state-of-the-art. 2 groups are going out with the best, the other 2 not the best. You're just going to hope that not the best doesn't show up at your house that night. So what I'm asking is to offer a substitute motion to fully fund the $44,000, and with that, to come up with the $22,000 is in line item 21, reduce that $25,000 by 22. So in line item 21, there's a $25,000 allocation for the planning board renovations, and it was explained that $125,000 of that comes from a different source. So that would give them $128,000 to do what they need to do in the planning board, but it gives us the needed $22,000 to fund the equipment. It is crucial equipment. Again, I'll reiterate, we have the best police, we have the best fire, as I stated earlier, we have the best DPW, but they need the best possible gear to make it happen. So I respectfully ask you to reduce line item 21 by $22,000 and fund line 4 by $22,000. Thank you.
So Mr. Delacono's action is tying together 2 of the projects in Article 4. So he is more or less simultaneously recommending that you increase number 4 by $22,000, and he is suggesting you reduce 21 by $22,000. That's his recommendation. You don't have to agree with, you can agree with 1, 2, neither, or both. So right now we're discussing line item 4, but he's let you know that he's coming back to suggest that if you decide to vote that, then he would try to get the money out of line item 21. So let's talk about 44 first, thermal cameras. Mr. Meyer-Curley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eric Meyer-Curley, Precinct 3. Just for clarification, though, if line item 21 is reduced by $22,000, that would leave it with just $3,000? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that would be correct.
Which would make that project null?
No? Okay. Well, I'm sorry. You better explain this, Mr. Goodwin. There's non-taxpayer money involved in that project. But
Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. Just to clarify, the funding being requested here is to supplement additional funding that the town has through the American Rescue Plan funds. We would have, as Mr. Dello Iacono indicated, we would have the $3,000 if town meeting so approved his substitute, plus $125,000, which would give us $128,000. Our current estimate for that construction is higher than that, so we would have to go back and rework the plans. I don't know that we could accomplish the project as we hope to do with $128,000.
further questions? Ms. Fay?
Susan Fay, Precinct 1. I don't know if our fire chief is here this evening. I'm just curious how often all 4 of our trucks are out at one time, where all 4 cameras would be in use at one time. So that's my first question. My second overall impression, I know that our current department heads would not allow a budget to come to us that compromised our safety. I know that. Having served on FinCom before, I understand the detail into which FinCom and our department heads go into to give us the best value and the best service. We here at town meeting, of course, we want to do also our due diligence in asking the questions. But it is hard for me to think that I can second guess our fire chief in what he thought provided us safe service. In the same way, I don't want to second guess our superintendent of schools, how she is making decisions to provide us the best educational services. I simply don't have their background or their training. But I know that the time has been spent investigating these things. So I do have that one question, and I'm curious how often all 4 of our fire trucks are out needing the services of the thermal imaging cameras. And then I also just want to finish by repeating what I just said, in that I have confidence that this capital budget brings to us excellent public safety and education.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Chief. Fire Chief William Spillane.
Good evening, everyone. Bill Spillane, Fire Chief. Thanks for the question, Susan. The thermal imaging cameras that we're discussing right now, the fire department maintains 8 of these cameras. There's a camera assigned to each one of the trucks that we run. The 3 engine companies and 1 ladder company are the frontline pieces, and then also for the reserve trucks as well. These cameras, they come, 4 of these cameras are the one we're looking to replace, approximately 10 years old. The other 4, they were purchased in, I believe, 2018, so they're approaching 6 years old. So the reason this year we're replacing the 4 is a number of years ago, quite a few years ago, we put in place an equipment and vehicle replacement plan and stay with that. The reason we stay with that is we can't accept failure in our business. So these cameras, being 6 years old, they're still operating today. If they weren't operating, I'd pull them off the trucks. What I'm trying to do is replace these, being proactive before we do have a failure and we have to start to run short. Then we'll be taking 1 camera from 1 truck and we'll want to go into the next. So Susan, to answer your question about how often are 4 trucks at a scene at one time, on a daily basis. Anytime we have any type of a incident, whether it's a fire scene, we're looking for overheated fixtures or what have you, each one of these cameras, we'll deploy 1 member from each one of these trucks to go in to investigate these areas. It's never been more challenging with with all the new apartment buildings that we have. It's not just going into single-family homes. We're going into these larger scale buildings, both commercial and residential, and it's very important that all the firefighters are equipped with what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion on this project?
Hi, Ann Mercer, Precinct 4. I just want to understand both sides of this request. So the project that would have decreased funding line, that's for a service counter in the new town hall that we just finished building not that long ago?
A positive vote for Mr. Dello O'Connor's proposal does not automatically reduce line 21. You will ask questions, vote, and debate on that. You have the option of doing that. But
Okay, so-
they're not tied together.
Okay. Thank you.
Andrew Chajasti, Precinct 7. Just to say, I support the article. I mean, we're talking about thermal cameras, which, even if they're not used too often, it only takes once where you need it, and if you don't have it, that's a problem, versus, and I know we're jumping ahead here, is versus that or a service counter. I think our priority should be safety over a counter, respectfully. Especially for ARPA funds for a counter. I mean, again, I'm going a little off topic, but ARPA funds for a counter seems a little ridiculous to me. But American Rescue Plan should be for safety, frankly. But just going back to the main thing, I think the safety should be the bigger priority rather than this other stuff. Thank you.
Hi, Stacy Garnett from Precinct 3. With the thermal cameras, I think I remember from mini town meeting that if we weren't able to purchase all 4 this year, that we could purchase the additional ones in a future year. So I just wanted to check what the plan was, and I do appreciate the department being proactive in keeping our equipment updated.
Thank you, Ms. Gunn. Chief Spillane, please.
This is Bill Spillane, Fire Chief. Yes, that's correct. I will be back next year again, looking to replace the 2 cameras if they weren't funded this year. I don't have it in front of me, but as I mentioned before, we have put together a comprehensive equipment and vehicle replacement plan. So by delaying these 2, potentially that could impact the replacement of the other ones within coming years.
Thank you, Chief. Any other speakers? Mr. Davey.
Hi, Steve Davey, Precinct 3. I'm certain, without having gone to the planning board recently, that there's some kind of counter there. So I would like to hear from the planning department.
We can talk that when 21 comes up, Mr. Davey. We'll talk about the counter. These 2 are not tied.
Okay.
It's a recommendation from Mr. Dello O'Connor that if you agree with him and replace extra thermal cameras, that, by the way, a way to pay for that would be to take them out of this pot. But,
Right, but
one doesn't trigger the other. They're separate votes. So we will discuss the counters when we get to 21.
Well, but the counter could be used for safety as well.
Well, we're
Yes.
talking about 4 now, and the counters are specifically in 21. So we will talk about the counters when we get to line 21. Yeah. Yes, Ms. Carney.
We're on Article 4, but shouldn't we have had a vote on Article 3 first? The total amount of the...
We did that in the omnibus vote. We voted for each line item that was discussed individually, and the ones that weren't discussed, we passed in that omnibus vote at the end of the consent calendar process.
So could somebody give me a figure then, that what now represents the total operating budget?
You know, we're right in the middle of Article 4, which is a significant impact. I don't have a number. I don't know if anybody's been keeping a running tally. Nothing changed. Okay, yeah. So
Nothing changed.
Right now, we're at the same number that's in the book because the amendments that were suggested to increase did not pass, and the ones that were suggested to decrease did not pass. So we're right at the same level right now.
Well, we're on 4 now, which of course is a moneyed item for capital expenditures. But you know, we're sitting here, as we do all the time. Recommendations that this go up, recommendations that go down. This is going to come from this, this is going to come from that. I appreciate the Finance Committee. I served on it for a long time. They spent a lot of time coming to these recommendations. But I also know, and it's a general remark for how we're spending money. If we all were to look at the very back of the book, and I'm not saying we should, but there are 2 tables there that tell the whole quick picture of where we are at. And one of them in the bottom row talks about the tax levy, which you alluded to a minute ago. Our tax levy started in FY18, and we were at 2.75% for the tax levy. We stayed at 2 some odd percent for a few years. Then we went to 3.5. Then we went to 3 3/4. Then we went to 3.83, 3.83%. Then we jumped to 4. And that was in FY23, and we were at 4.21%. And now, in the present budget that we're dealing with right now, not what we're voting for, we are at a tax levy of 7 and almost 0.5%. We get up here and when we look at requests, and we say, well, this seems that it'd be better if we increase this, and maybe we lower that and whatnot. Do we have the big picture in mind? Because there is a bottom to every well. And this 7.5% tax levy this year is not telling the story of where we are next year. And we were advised a few years ago by the Collins Center that we were in deficit spending because we were spending more than we were taking in. They cautioned us about things. They said we have a very high amount of debt for the town our size. They said our budget is carrying, just for our debt service annually, 10%. Just to pay the principal and the interest on all the debt that we have, which the man suggested was too high. 10% of our budget goes to that every year, just to keep ourselves in there with the debt. The gentleman said for a town our size, we should be at 5%. We need to think about what we're doing here, because when we go in 5 or 6 years from 2.75% tax levy to 7.5%, it is not sustainable. And the gentleman told us that. He said, you're in deficit spending, and we have been. We were at 1.7 in the gap this year for deficit spending, and I think it's 2 plus. See, well, for a while we had some money in, let us say, a savings account. That's gone now. And this time next year, if we continue the way we are, we're going to need a general override. I've said it before, we are on a very slippery slope, and the direction we're heading is not pretty. And as much as I feel badly about this, and I may be the only one in the room tonight that does, I'm not going to vote for this budget. We need to get a grip on what's happening here. These taxes are escalating beyond belief. We are spending more than we're taking in. We're not in a good place. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Carney. Mr. Conley and Ms. Butler. Mr. Conley?
Just going back to this particular article.
Mr. Conley, just your name and district for the stenographer.
Gene Connolly, Precinct 3.
Thank you.
I wanted to just clarify, I believe obviously we need this equipment, and by any means necessary, whether it's taking it from one item or increasing the budget. But I guess I want to clarify, if we don't take it from this other section, what are the other options? Are we just going to, would we have to just increase the budget, or?
It's an increase in the budget and an increase in the tax levy. Not every nickel we spend comes out of the taxpayers, but because there's state aid, there's local fees, et cetera. But if you add $500,000 to the budget, your tax bill, average single family, goes up $44. So,
Yeah. I guess I'm saying that because there's reference to we can handle it now before we get to taking it out from the other line item. So if we handle it now, that means just increasing the budget.
They're two separate votes. Let me ask Town Council to weigh in.
Mr. Moderator, actually, I think we should clarify with the individual making the motion whether it was intended that this additional amount would come from free cash for this vote, or it would come from the general tax levy, because obviously we can't predict what will happen with that later line item.
So, Mr. Delacano, the question is, if this is if this were a standalone, we understand what your recommendation is, but if this was standalone, would you be taking it from free cash, or would it be decreasing the excess?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. You know, last week I had cheap glasses on to read the print. This week I can see everything, and now I can see I've caused some confusion. I would like, with this single motion, not to bring in 21 right now, but with this single motion, I would like to see town meeting vote in support the $44,000. That money would come from the general budget. Is that council from?
Free cash or?
Free cash. My apologies. So just for terminology on that, because it was requested, the money, $22,000 increase, sir, would come from free cash. Mr. Moderator, thank you.
So to clarify, Ms. Goldberg, if it comes from free cash, it does not increase the levy, which means it does not decrease the excess levy. I know to be good and clear. So free cash, what's free cash? It's neither free nor is it cash, as an old member of the Finance Committee many years ago used to say. The simplest explanation is that every year we appropriate an amount of money to be spent. If the actual spending comes in less than that, that, with the approval of the state, becomes free cash. There are fine-tunings to that, but from a high level, that's what it is. So it's, call it like a surplus for the town in a given year. You vote $134 million, we spend $133 million. There's $1 million that's eligible to be put in free cash.
Yeah, well, I think free cash would be probably the best option for this. Either way, I think it's necessary to get done. I mean,
yeah, there are pros and cons to both. I mean, free cash, if it gets too low, that has its own implications. If it doesn't come from free cash, it directly increases the tax bill. So it's a tough spot.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Roberts, Chair of the Finance and Warrant Committee.
Thank you. At present, the town's free cash balance is $1,785,342. We want to add that that is the lowest amount that the town has had in free cash since 2019.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Butler.
Thank you. Hi, Susan Butler, Precinct 6. Again, I'd like to thank the work done by the Finance and Warrant Committee tonight, as well as the wisdom that's always spoken by Stu Connie. I'd just like to remind everyone that we have spent a total of $26.5 million on the town hall, which included $1.8 million in additional costs.
Ms. Connie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have to speak on the matter before us, which is thermal cameras for the fire department.
Okay, so I was under the impression that from Carmen, your motion that money was being moved out of the planning design?
No.
Or the
Ms. Butler, it is Carmen's recommendation that if you agree with him on the thermal cameras, that that's a possible source for the money. The money could be taken from anybody, it could be taken from free cash, or it could add to the tax levy. They are separate votes. So we will talk about the wisdom of the
I
counter.
just had a comment to make about the cost of town hall so far in order.
Well,
You're not allowing me-
that's not germane to this point. We have to speak on the thing in front of us.
Okay.
Susan, I'm sorry. Mr. Laporto?
Bob Laporto, P5, move the question.
All those in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is a two-thirds vote. Okay, so the higher amount is $44,000. This is on page 14, Article 4, line item number 4. We vote on the higher amount first. This is proposed, the higher amount as well as the original amount proposed to come from free cash, so we're not borrowing for it, so it's a majority vote. So this sounds a little arcane, but what we first do is vote to whether we accept the amendment, and then if we accept the amendment, we vote on the amended amount. It's just the way it works. So if you're in favor of Mr. Dallin O'Connor's proposal, say yes. Say aye. Aye. If you're opposed, say no. No. It's too close. Get your clickers out. All those in favor of spending. Oop. All right, we just got to change. What we're voting on again is we're voting on the higher amount. So we're voting on $44,000 for the thermal cameras. And as soon as I get the go-ahead, you vote yes. If you, no, it's a majority. Let me, while they're doing that, let me just, this is not to be construed as a criticism. The reason we're doing this now is because these are amendments. Amendments that in some cases we got minutes before town meeting started. So that's not a criticism. You're entitled to do that. We encourage people, if you know what you're going to do, pass it in when you know it, and then we would have worked out some of what we're trying to work out right now. Again, sometimes things come up and people want to make an amendment they hadn't thought they wanted to make, so we don't make a big deal about it. But in some towns, you cannot pass an amendment, you cannot discuss an amendment that wasn't passed in 3 copies before the meeting began. But we don't hold people to that. You only do this 2 nights a year, so let's not make it any worse than it is. But the price is that sometimes you see us up here going back and forth, because we're dealing with numbers that, in some cases, we got just as the meeting was starting. Okay? So we're voting on the higher amount, which is $44,000 for a line item. Yes, the amendment for $44,000. Yeah, okay. You're voting to add 22,000 to the 22,000 is there. So what you're voting on is no, I'm sticking to my guns. You're voting for Mr. Dallin O'Connor's proposal that this line item be funded at 44,000. That's 22 that's in there and his additional 22. You're voting for 44,000. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, so we're back to the clickers. All those in favor of the 44, please. What? It just went down. What you're voting on the town clerk has asked me to vote this again. What we're voting on is the amendment. The amendment is for 22,000. So if you're in favor of adding 22,000 to the 22,000 that exists, then click your clicker yes. Well, I'm told you didn't understand it. Did you understand that's what you were doing? You were voting for the amendment? Okay. I gave you the option of voting again. You told me you didn't need it, so let's... All right. If when this comes up, you have questions, you can doubt the vote. If 7 people doubt the vote, we'll do it again. That's all. Vote is still open. It's a long 10 seconds. It's still open. Votes are still coming in. Vote is closed. $134 members having voted yes to increase the original amount by the amended amount, and 92 in the negative. The amendment passes. We now vote on the article as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So we now have $44,000 in Article 4, line 4. Okay, ready to move on? Great. Line 8, Public Works, Sprague Street Sidewalk. Any discussion on line item 8 of Article 4? There being none, the vote comes on the original motion in your book. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That is a 2/3 vote. If you look at the chart on page for Article 4, at the far right, see there are two ways to pay for things, free cash and bonding. Bonding means borrowing. Free cash is a majority vote, bonding is a 2/3 vote. So that was a 2/3 vote to accept the original motion on line 8. Line 17, infiltration in sewer. The original motion is for $1.5 million to be borrowed. Yes, Mr. Muck.
I'm making a motion that we decrease the line 17 of Article 4 from $1,500,000 to $1 million.
Is there a second? Mr. Muck.
The rationale for making that change is that originally it was presented that this was going to be part of mandatory inspections of up to 1,600 houses in the Paul Park, Oakdale, Green Lodge, and Manor neighborhoods. I would like to see this put off until the select board have had a public meeting and set guidelines on how these home inspections will be done, whether they'll be done on a voluntarily session or mandatory. Making mandatory inspections of households is a big step in this community, and that I think that the select board need to be in front of this and set the guidelines on how these inspections will be done before funding it. And by the way, I'm the only substitute motion that actually reduces the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muck. Again, I'm obligated to point out that reducing a line item cannot be tied to a specific purpose. This is the same discussion we had earlier. So you can reduce this. It is your prerogative to reduce this to $1 million. That doesn't mean that the the inspections, mandatory or otherwise, will either not happen at all or be delayed or anything. Mr. Maher has made his intention clear, but it's not mandatory on the town. Ms. Martin.
Gemma Martin, Precinct 7. This is a health issue. There is sewage coming up into homes in the Manor neighborhood. There's sewage coming up into my house. My middle child may never be the same after having sewage splash all over her. If this inspection offends people by learning the proper way to handle their outflow, I'm sorry, but we have to control the issue. All is going to happen is someone's going to come in and say, you're doing it the wrong way, correct it by doing it this way. I don't see what the issue is. It needs to be corrected. It's a health issue. And honest to God, sewage is coming into your neighbors' homes. It needs to be fixed.
Mr. Marr.
Jim Marr, Precinct 5. First of all, this is for a study, okay, with inspections. This doesn't solve the problem. Not one nickel of this $500,000 will solve the problem of sewerage on Bonham Road. We had a similar sewerage issue on Hooper Road, which was affecting a number of condominiums in the Manor neighborhood. There was no study that was done. The fix was done, and it happened. I just want you to be aware that, and I'm just going to take a moment to educate a little. The Manor neighborhood is a follow-through for all the sewage from the Paul Park, Oakdale, Green Lodge neighborhoods. It all routes through the Manor neighborhood. All the storm water from those same neighborhoods run through the Manor neighborhood. So this isn't just a Manor neighborhood problem, but we're the ones being impacted. If $500,000 was being used to fix the issue on Bonham Road, I'd be raising my hand and voting for it. What it's trying to do is find an excuse and not fix it. Thank you.
Ms. Gilbert.
Thanks, Mr. Moderator. Mary Gilbert, Precinct 4. I'd like to ask, once the conversation ends, the $500,000, my understanding is it's for a study. You can't fix something unless you know how you need to fix it. So logically, I think that it's necessary to study it. I want to ask if I may, an answer from our administrator. This money is for voluntary. I was at the mini-town meeting. That's why I just want to make sure I understand. It's $500,000 to do a study to figure out how to fix this problem.
Your confusion is shared by many.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Mr. Mamone to come down. He gave me a very simple explanation of what this is, and I'm going to ask him to share that with you so that you know what you're voting on.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jason Mamone, Director of Engineering. The $500,000 that's in front of you this evening is to collect data to see where the inflow and infiltration coming from private properties is going into the town's public sewer system, taking away the valuable capacity to just transport wastewater. At this point, whenever we have significant storm events, infiltration and inflow from private properties is getting into the sewer system, which is prohibited. And it's taken away the capacity, which is then resulting in backups in many homes, just not in the Bonham Greensboro area, but also isolated areas throughout that sub-area of sewer system. So that money is being used specifically to identify the homes that which have a potential prohibitive connection, so we can then develop a plan on properly redirecting to the appropriate sources.
Mr. Mamone, if I can paraphrase, just so that we can get some clarification. Your explanation to me was very, very clear. So we're asking people to not put certain prohibited fluids into the sewer system, but possibly redirect it to the sanitary sewer.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So clean water in terms of inflow is groundwater or stormwater that comes from rain events that goes into catch basins, yard drains, driveway drains, and then is directly connected to the sewer system. Those need to be directed to the stormwater system. The sewer system is not the proper location to have those connections made. All that clean water is being paid for. Everybody who has a sewer connection to the town of Dedham through your rates. So the more clean water I can get not only alleviates the problem of these homeowners, but also helps keep your rates as stable as we possibly can by eliminating what's being transported and treated to the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority each and every year.
Thank you, Mr. Mamone. So the issue is that clean water is goes into the system, which then gets recleaned by MWRA at our expense. So we want to divert it to the stormwater system, not the sewer system. Am I close enough there, Mr. Mamone? Okay. It's not generally the moderator's role to explain this, but I've sat through several meetings on this, and the questions are all the same each time, so it's a genuinely confusing subject.
One more question, if I may?
Sure.
I just, the 500,000, I hear what others are saying concerning coming into homes, but that doesn't seem to be really what the case is, and that's what I'm confused about. I understand privacy issues, but I also have deep concerns about sewerage coming into people's homes. So will this 500,000 study help people that are having this sewerage problem? That, to me, is very important. Thank you.
Through the moderator, thank you for the question. So we rely on our consultants who have a vast knowledge and technical experience in the town sewer system. And just to give a little brief history, the town of Dedham on its own has spent over $2 million in and around these sewer sub-areas to remove I&I through means of trenchless technologies. So you might see pipeliner crews out in your neighborhood. You might have seen manhole rehab crews out in your neighborhood. We have removed about 1.6 million gallons per day of inflow and infiltration from the public system. But still, it remains that whenever there's a significant storm event, we've metered the areas, there's an influx of clean water getting into the system from inflow and infiltration. It's not to say that the town system is 100% void of these issues, but we have eliminated the biggest and most major contributors to this I&I in our system. So it only leaves a few other options left, which comes from the private system. So our consultants have pretty much told us that the best way to identify this is to see how many prohibitive connections there are, because that's where the biggest amount of flow comes in a short amount of time during significant storm events. So we may find that this is the problem, but this is where they want us to go. We may find out that this isn't, and then we have to go to the drawing board again. But if we're not able to start going down the list and identifying the suspected causes, we really don't have anything to run on.
Thank you, Mr. Malone.
Move the question, please.
Move the question. Two-thirds vote to move the question. All in favor of stopping debate, moving the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're voting on the higher number first. The higher number is the original. It's not in this one. I don't know what's the higher number. Yeah, right? The higher number is 1.5 million. This is line 17, and you'll see it's in the bonded column, which means we're borrowing it, which means that for it to be approved, we need a two-thirds vote. Okay, go ahead. A yes vote is a vote for 1.5 million. If you agree with Mr. Marr, excuse me. If you agree with Mr. Marr, vote no. If you agree with Gemma Martin, vote yes. Is that clear? Okay. Okay, just one person stand up and say what's bugging me. Oh, well, I'm not responsible for the screen. Okay, I'm looking at the warrant book, which you have. The original motion is 1.5 million. As my first grade teacher said, look at my face. I didn't mean that to be. 1.5 million. If you're in favor of spending the 1.5 million, which excuse me. If you're in favor of spending the 1.5 million, which is the position that town government is encouraging you to do, then you should vote yes right now. If you're not in favor of spending the 1.5 and rather believe that Mr. Marr's point of view is correct, you should vote no. So is that clear? Okay. The vote is open. Go to your clickers and vote, please. Voting's closed. Whoops, do the two-thirds for me. Two-thirds. 181 people having voted in favor of the 1.5 million and 54 in the negative. That is a two-thirds vote. Thank you. Line item 21, town facilities, town planning department service counter construction. The original motion is $25,000. We've been informed that there is some non-taxpayer money supplementing that cost. Mr. Dell'Orcano, well, I don't know, are you still proposing to cut that? I know, it's okay.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Like I said, I have to get my 3 seconds, and I'll make it 3. My original was to reduce the 21, Article 21, line item 21 by the $22,000, but it was approved from free cash, so I withdraw my substitute motion, Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Why don't you come sit up here with us, Carmen? I think that might be better.
Mr. Moderator, I just stated that, but I'm just getting a little feedback from town meeting. If they want to discuss this and actually make that change, then I'm willing to keep my substitute motion on.
You can discuss line item 21 without discussing your amendment. What's before us is the original motion of $25,000. Yours is an amendment to that. You can withdraw your amendment, which you've done, unless you change your mind, and we will still be discussing the spending $25,000 plus the non-taxpayer money.
I'm going to see where this goes, Mr. Moderator. My substitute motion is to reduce this line item by $22,000 because I honestly feel it can be done within the budget of $128,000 and it doesn't have to go to the extreme that they're looking at. But let's see what town meeting has to say. Thank you, sir.
Well, you got to help me here, Carmen. Is your motion original? Is your substitute motion alive and well or not?
The substitute
don't
motion.
Look up there. Look at me.
The substitute motion, sir, is as I had written. Substitute motion for line item 21 is to reduce 25,000 to 20 by 22,000
to 3,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So we're discussing that proposal, but this is the time to talk about the planning department's proposed renovation project. There being no discussion? Well, you know, if you want to discuss it. Ms. Butler? No, go to the microphone, please, Ms. Butler. Ms. Gates, if you're ready to speak, you can speak, and then Susan can speak. You're here.
Mr. Moderator, I'm just confused right now of where this money is coming from for the fire department equipment. Is that what we're talking about now?
No, we've already
Okay,
voted.
go easy on me.
Listen, everybody, don't be chuckling. You'll be in her position soon if you've got the courage to get up and speak as much as she does, so let's just be fair.
Well, I will make a comment, if you can just give me a minute here, regarding the cost of town hall. Sorry, everyone. Hold on here.
Susan, what?
Okay, Susan Butler, Precinct 6. I'm, for one, I'm done putting more money at this time into Town Hall. We've spent $26.5 million, which also included $1.8 million in additional costs due to delays, and that was really issues with the vendor. And secondly, at the Springtown meeting of last year, we appropriated $680,000 for exterior repairs to the town hall, including work to the siding and paint to repair the gutters and to fix the leaking roof. We also have received $100,000, which is good, from the state. So all in total, we have spent a great deal of money at Town Hall, and I would ask town meeting to put a pause for any other money going towards the Town Hall at this time. Thank you.
So the proposal before us is to reduce it by 22,000. That's our vote. So you're
Yes.
in favor of reducing that amount?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Ms. Gates?
Good evening, Rebecca Gates, Precinct 7. I would like to affirm that we reduce this to the $22,000 off of this. I think we all came here tonight to pay homage to our taxpayers and make sure that we show them that we are here to make the hard decisions. We do have the extra money that is going to be put into this from the extra source, and I do believe that they can make it do what they need to do with what they have. But I firmly think that, you know what, we don't want to raise the total cost. And, that was what I came here to do, is to, be as respectful as I can to those who put me in this place. And that is why I think the substitute motion of $22,000 taken off of this, so it's a $3,000 addition to the $125,000 they already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gates. Mr. Davey?
So I think I asked this at the wrong time before, but can someone from planning please explain the need for this addition?
Yes. Mr. Rosenberg, Director of Planning International.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jeremy Rosenberger, Planning Director for the Planning, Zoning, and Natural Resources Department. And, these are good questions. I know you've spent a lot of money on this, the beloved Town Hall, and I'm honored to actually work in the building. It's the best building I've worked in my 20 years of public service, so I thank you all taxpayers for that. I do wish we could turn back time, though. I wish I was here when the plans were being developed for the department, and namely on our, what is the second floor. If you ever come to the planning department, which I'm sure many of you have, you'll notice that our department does actually not have a transactional counter, and it sounds pretty mundane, transactional counter, but it's really a place to conduct business. And we are the only department that does not have that on the second floor. And if you know the planning department, we deal with a lot of transactions through our beloved boards, planning board, zoning board, design review advisory board, many walk-ins. Also, this is now the planning, zoning, and natural resources department, so also stormwater is within our department, and conservation. So we receive a lot of daily interactions from the public. And through my 20 years of doing this and working in development, sometimes folks aren't too happy with what we're doing when it comes to land use. And so if you notice, every other department has, really, I would like to say for safety purposes, a counter. The doors to get into the department are controlled by access. The public is not allowed through. Unfortunately, our department, folks, we are very welcoming, congenial people. People love to come talk to us. But sometimes folks come into our offices and it's kind of hard to get them to leave. And we've had a couple of, I love for people to stay, but sometimes
I'm getting that feeling too, Jeremy. Not you.
I don't know what to say. You lost my train of thought. But anyways, we love people coming in. But sometimes people are coming into our offices and they want information, and basically they're coming into our offices, peering over our shoulder, and sometimes, it's sometimes hard to ask them to leave. And we've had situations with staff where they've had some uncomfortable situations. We are unlike any of the other departments on the second floor where there's this buffer where you have your transaction and people leave. Unfortunately, our department, people can come right in and come into our offices and pretty much go wherever they want. And so safety is our first goal. Second is professional transactions. Transactional counter, We can provide a professional courtesy service right at that counter, like all the other departments, assessing, building, treasurer, collector. So I hear you. That's why, through the discourse with Finance Warrant Committee, all the public interactions and questions and comments, this has gone down quite a bit in price. Originally, it was significant costs. If you've been to Town Hall, you know each of the departments, it's nicely done. Each of the counters have nice molding, so we have grates, so it's not cheap, unfortunately. If there was a way we could save a penny, we will continue to do that. But now the price is down to $25,000. We're asking for free cash, and then would be supplemented by what the town manager discussed, which is American Rescue money. So I hope you understand, and believe me, I feel bad asking for more money for this town hall. I know you've paid a lot and don't want to pay any more, but I wish I could go back in time and we could have re-engineered these plans. And I'm asking on behalf of my staff who feel we've had situations where they feel uncomfortable, and I don't want my staff to feel uncomfortable with situations that occur. And unfortunately, with development, when you're dealing with development, we're going to have situations where people are going to be upset, and we don't really have an easy way to have them come and go. The counter would prevent that. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Further questions, discussion? Ms. White.
Good evening. I appreciate, Tracy White, Precinct 4. I appreciate what you said, Jeremy, and I've worked in the town hall for many years, so I do understand there sometimes are safety issues. But if that be the case, then what about the Veterans Office? What about the HR office? What about the town manager's office? Like, if we're going to do it for one, then either we do it for all, or... So I think that if we're going to take care of one department, that's great, Jeremy, no disrespect, but then either we take care of all of them, or we can't do for one and not the others.
Thank you, Ms. White. Mr. Goodwin.
I appreciate that, Leon Goodwin, town manager. I appreciate that point. The difference between town manager's office, HR, or even some of the other departments up on the third floor is that they're not typically transactional with the public to the quantity that the departments on the second floor are. Furthermore, we all have offices that close within the town manager's office. We try to conduct all of our business out in the public area, and then we also all have meeting rooms that are available to us that we, again, will meet with the public in, and to try, again, create that degree of separation. We don't want to be inviting the public into the private spaces, because that does blur the lines and cause potential safety issues. So I think that those departments are quite different, and unfortunately, the planning department is much more similar to the other second floor departments, and there was, in my opinion, as Mr. Rosenberger said, a design error. He and I are both frugal New Englanders, just like all of you, and it pains me to ask for this money, just as much as it does Mr. Rosenberger, but I think it really is a merited ask.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? So the vote comes on the higher amount. The higher amount is the $25,000 number, and you'll notice it's in the free cash column, which means we voted by a majority. So a yes vote is a vote for $25,000. That's the number before you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. Okay, we'll go, that's too close to call. All those in favor of the 25, depends which way the vote goes, which side of the room laughs when I do that, but on your clickers, please vote yes if you're in favor of 25,000, vote no if you're in favor of a lower amount. The vote is open. Vote is closed. $127 town meeting representatives having voted yes and 108 no. The higher amount of $25,000 does pass. Somebody passed on line item 23. There's no money in there.
That's why I want to speak to you.
Okay.
Mary Ann Martin, Precinct 5. I'm coming up actually as the capital expenditure chair. This amount of money, the $49,000 plus, was for wiring of the library, which we currently pay for out of operating. Tell me if I'm wrong. We currently pay operating $28,000 a year. If we were to do this internally at the cost of $49,000 plus, the break-even point would be less than 2 years. Oh, 1 year? We'd break even in 1 year? Even better. Okay. I know no one knows what I'm talking about. I apologize.
Leon Goen, Town Manager. Thank you for the question, Ms. Martin. When we went to the Capital Expenditures Committee to request this, it was to rewire the libraries, and we envisioned it being a capital project that would be handled outside. We were able to handle this within the IT department's operating budget this year.
Perfect.
So therefore, we did not need to, and it'll be one and done.
Okay, so we'll see a reduction of $28,000 on the operating budget soon?
I think it's two separate things, but we were able to accomplish this with the operating budget funds that were appropriated in FY24.
Okay, the reduction would be in the paying of the consultants that we currently pay now.
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, let me just finish this. Any other questions? So no vote is needed because the sum is zero, and no motion to amend the zero has been proposed, so we can move on. So that takes care of Article 4. Now what we're going to do is, if you'll just go back a page to page 13, and you'll see that that's where the motions are written. And the town clerk has recalculated for me where we stand. What's the number, Paul? What's the number? So the sum, see there were two paragraphs there that the town appropriate $153,000 from free cash. That's a majority vote. You have changed the 853 to 875. So the amount before you is that the town appropriate $175,000 from free cash to pay the cost of the items as listed. Is that clear? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. That was a majority vote. The second paragraph involves borrowing, and just to clean things up, we're going to take a vote that includes all the borrowing. You discussed one of the borrowing projects. This requires a 2/3 vote. We can try for a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is a 2/3 vote. Thank you. I hear a Mr. Moderator, but I don't see where. Go to the mic. Miriam, please go to the microphone. We have a stenographer that's...
Just a point of clarification.
That's okay. The stenographer likes to get those in there, too.
My apologies for coming up again. It went too fast. Could you just put up the number for the borrowing that we voted on? We voted, I saw the number.
It's the number in the book.
Oh, it didn't change?
Didn't change.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay? Okay. Well, thank you. You did good work doing through Article 3 and 4. There was lots of stuff to talk about there. So we're going to Article 6. It's been passed. Somebody wishing to speak on Article 6? Seeing none, the vote comes on the original motion, which is printed on page 16. The chart's on 16. The motion's on 15. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Article 8. Go to the microphone, please, Mr. Marr. Anybody who wants to, if it's just a point of order, just yell out point of order and then go to the microphone. But if you have a question,
Yes,
if you have a question, we want to capture it.
Mr. Moderator?
For posterity. Yes.
I passed line 15 and 16. I wonder why we went overlooked that.
I don't have those. When we came to Article 6, I asked if anybody wanted to speak. Nobody spoke. Well, that's the way it works. People sometimes pass and then choose not to get up. So I said Article 6. Does anybody have anything to say about 6? And nobody got up. Mr. Marr, I'm sorry. I called and you didn't get up. And I honestly didn't know who it was. I didn't know it was you.
Mr. Moderator, I'm looking for an explanation of line 15 and 16, specifically pupil tuition. Thank you.
They've already been passed, so we're not going to discuss them. That's why we do this whole consent calendar process.
Move to reconsider, please.
That's fair. Majority vote is in an hour. Okay. It's a majority vote to reconsider, which means we can go back. It's not debatable. All in favor of reconsidering, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. In all fairness, I think we need to count that more accurately. Go to your clickers. All in favor of reconsideration. We're voting on reconsideration of 15 and 16. It hasn't made it up to the screen yet, but that's what we're doing, of Article 6, as proposed by Mr. Marr. Majority vote. Vote's open. The vote's open. You can't debate reconsideration. That's what we're taking into consideration. I mean, oh. So, yeah, okay, thank you. Vote is closed.
I'm the new Brian Keeney.
The motion to reconsider received 63 votes. Motion not to reconsider, or the vote not to reconsider was 152. The motion does not carry. So we're up to 12. Article 12 has been passed. I think it's Mr. Keeney. Yes, Mr. Keeney, Article 12. Reports of committees.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Brian Keeney. I live at 183 Grant Ave. We have a state law in Chapter 40 and a bylaw in the town of Dedham in Chapter 78 that says the selectmen, and selectmen specifically actually, have to produce an annual town report every year that covers all the town departments, all the boards and committees, everything. I stopped by the library this afternoon. The most recent one we have there is from 2014. So I'm wondering what happened in the last 10 years and when can we expect them?
Thank you, Mr. Keeney. Mr. Goodwin?
So Leon Goodwin, Town Manager. I'm not aware of what copies the library has. If Mr. Keeney says through 2014, then I take him at his word. I do know that we have hard copies available in Town Hall through 2019, and I believe we've just finished 2020. And it's been an ongoing project for us to get caught up over the last number of years, to get caught up on all of those. So, and it's something that we've committed to, and we continue to be committed to that. And I'll work with the library director to get the updated through at least 2019 in the library.
Mr. Keeney.
I've heard commitments, I can go back years showing emails asking about this, and I've heard commitments from multiple administrations. So I'm wondering how committed you are. Do we have a date when we might have these?
I think we've made good progress over the last several years.
We're 5 years behind.
And we started off
Mr.
even
Keeney.
more than that. So I will say, again, I think our priority is in the current years and making sure we're operating and funding town government, but it is important to get caught up, and we recognize that, and we'll work on it. And I would hope to say that by the next town meeting, we would be at least, if not completely caught up, have caught up on a couple more versions.
So if there's a report of committees...
Mr. Keeney,
I'm sorry.
it's not a back and forth, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Marr?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to make everyone aware, last year this conversation came up, and I actually went up to Town Hall and was able to receive a copy of the last town report. If you're a person that is not someone who wants to read it online or doesn't have that mental focus to be able to do that, and you want to have a hard copy, I was able to get a hard copy at Town Hall to review. So it was old, but I was given a copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marr. Further discussion? Vote comes on the original motion, which is printed on page 21. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 13. 13's been passed. Discussion. Hearing, no? Yep, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Christina Pendleton, Precinct 7. I passed this article because I know we spoke, we talked about it a little bit last week, but I have a similar concern to Mr. Dello Iacono, who spoke up about this fund. I just want some clarification on how this article impacts the use of this money for drug abuse prevention and treatment, or whatever the original purpose of this money was, how this article impacts that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Goldberg.
Mr. Moderator, through you. So state law has changed since the town voted to create this special purpose stabilization fund. Essentially, the Department of Revenue has created in every single town that receives opioid settlement funds, a special revenue fund for opioid receipts, settlement receipts. What this does is rescinds the town's efforts to track that money separately outside of the general fund, and allows us to put those receipts into the fund that was created by the state. It has no effect on what the funds can be spent for.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Rick Mahalka, Precinct 2. I was wondering if somebody could help me understand or delineate, and maybe there's no change, but what these funds can and cannot be used for, specifically towards opioid treatment, or if that could go to law enforcement or health services or other things, if they could help lay that out. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Ms. Goldberg.
Mr. Moderator, the funds can only be spent in accord with the Massachusetts opioid settlement agreement. That agreement's terms and conditions are found online. It's very, very restricted, and it sets forth all of the potential uses. They can't be used for random things. They have to be used for opioid-related health purposes and avoidance purposes.
Thank you. Further discussion, questions? Vote comes on the original motion that it be so voted. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Article 15 on page 23. Is there discussion? Questions? Mr. Sullivan.
Jim Sullivan, 299 Riverside Drive. I'm not speaking out against the library and what they want to plan. However, as Kevin Preston pointed out at the mini, we're not going to be in any position to actually do anything at the libraries for several years, I imagine. And I got on the Building, Planning, and Construction Committee about 20 years ago, and there was kind of an action then to not, through our committee, not to fund studies that are just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust. Because, I mean, we have a library, we did 4 or 5 on the police station, and then we go to redo the new public safety building, we got to do a study. So I just see this as a waste of money until we're ready to actually do something. We're going to study it anyway before we do it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Amber Maroney, Director of the Library, Town of Dedham.
Amber Maroney, Director of the Library. So this article will allow us to apply for a building grant through the state. This portion of the grant, this phase of the grant would, if awarded, we would receive $100,000 from the state, and the board, the library board, has committed to spending $150,000 from library trust funds to fund the other portion. Though that money would be used to determine what we need in library buildings. We have 2 buildings that they're busy all day, all week, but they are severely inadequate for what we do. This money would be used to determine what we need from our buildings. This vote tonight does not determine whether or not we are getting a new building or renovating or anything of that sort. If we are awarded this grant, if we are able to apply for the grant and are awarded the grant, if the board chooses to move forward with it, a question would go before town meeting in spring of 2026, which is when, again, if we choose to move forward, the big ask would be. So again, this vote tonight is not for a new building, but it will allow us to look into what we need to do with our current buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maroney. Questions? The vote comes on the original motion that it be so voted. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Please go to your clickers. If you are in favor, please press yes. If you're opposed, vote no. It's Article 15. Yeah. All set. Vote's open. Votes closed. 147 haven't voted yes, 82 no. The original motion does carry. Article 17, page 25. Any discussion on Article 17? Hearing none, the motion comes on the original motion as printed on page 25. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Article 18. Hearing no objection, the chair will allow some members who are not town meeting representatives, but who have been actively involved in this article by attendance at hearings and preparing of statements, so that we get both sides of this question adequately addressed. First, going to recognize Emily Walton.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Walton. I live in Precinct 6, and I'm on the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Thank you for your stamina and patience to make it this far. Climate legislation in 2021 set forth pretty clear greenhouse gas reduction targets for the Commonwealth over the next 5, 10, and 30 years. And through our climate action planning process in 2020, we collected data that showed that 60% of our greenhouse gas emissions in Dedham come directly from buildings. So that seemed like an obvious area of focus in terms of meeting the targets set out by the Commonwealth. For some context about building codes, historically there have been 2 building codes in Massachusetts, a base code that set kind of the minimum standard for energy efficiency in buildings, and then the stretch code, which set the maximum standard. Dedham adopted the stretch code in 2010, and both the base code and the stretch code are updated on a 3-year cycle following public hearing. And coming out of the last public hearing for the updates, the state of Massachusetts introduced a new option for towns called the opt-in specialized code, which allows us to potentially go a little bit further than what the stretch code previously allowed. So I will go into that a little bit. These charts, because we have already adopted the stretch code, these charts show just the changes from the stretch code to the opt-in code, because this is what you would be voting on. I'm not going to go through every line. This is in the appendix of your warrant booklet, but I would highlight a couple things. The first is that the opt-in code applies to new construction only. It does not apply to existing buildings, additions, alterations, or renovations. Those would all be covered by the stretch code updates. The second thing I would highlight is that the opt-in code does not require buildings to be all electric. You can still build with fossil fuels as long as the wiring infrastructure is in place to potentially switch to sustainable energy sources in the future. And we see this as a really important consumer protection benefit of the opt-in code. The state has obviously laid out very clearly that they are going to be increasingly restricting fossil fuels in the next 25 years. And so building a brand new building that isn't prepared to move away from fossil fuels seems like a mistake. These are basically the reasons. We've been researching this for over a year now, and these are the reasons that we put it forth in front of town meeting. The opt-in code would ensure that new construction is more energy efficient, so it would put less strain on the electric grid. As I just mentioned, it would protect consumers' long-term investment in new buildings. Putting in a handful of 240-volt outlets around key appliances during construction is a pretty cost-efficient way to do that. But going back 5, 10 years later and retrofitting by opening up walls would be a much bigger investment and would be a negative to homeowners and building owners. The energy efficiency requirements and the other kind of like elements of the opt-in code would provide enormous cost savings for the homeowner or building owner because it's so much cheaper to operate and maintain buildings that are built to the opt-in code. And opting into the opt-in code would put Dedham in a position to access additional grant funding through the state through the Climate Leaders Grant Program. We are already eligible for $225,000 through the green communities that we're a part of, but the Climate Leaders would give us access to additional grant funds. This is a building code update, so we're not asking town meeting for any money, but we have gotten the question frequently about how much would this affect upfront costs for construction. Built Energy Plus very recently released a large-scale study of net zero ready buildings, meaning that they're ready to connect to sustainable energy sources, as I mentioned, and 80% had less than a 1% construction cost increase. This graph is on the flyer if you picked up a flyer on your way in. It's on the back, so you can look more closely at the different types of buildings and kind of where they fall in that cost breakdown, but just because not everyone can see clearly, that highest bar on the graph is actually at 0% change in cost. We have also recently gotten a lot of questions about whether or not the electric grid can handle the opt-in code, and the simple answer is yes. The updates to the stretch code combined with the opt-in code would actually be better for the electric grid than continuing to build to the stretch code that we had been building to through 2023. So this would actually be an improvement in terms of our demand on the grid, and it would shift the peak electric demand toward the winter where there's more capacity in the grid. Many of our neighboring towns have already adopted this, including Norwood, Boston, Needham, Milton just passed it last week, I believe. And so it's increasingly becoming more and more common, and the building code on record for especially Eastern Massachusetts and Metro Boston, and it's very quickly expanding as more town meetings vote on it.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Chair recognizes Mr. Al Mateo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, town meeting members. My name is Al Mateo. I live at 47 Village Avenue. I am a business owner as well as a resident of Dedham. I just would like to explain the issues with this, this new opt-in code. First of all, there's approximately 40 of the 351 communities in the state of Mass have signed on, which is a very small percentage. The town of Dedham will not be on a level playing field with all towns. It has been said that this opt-in code will be mandated in the future by the state. Well, if that's true, then why has it not already been mandated as the stretch code was? And when and if it's mandated, the entire state will be on equal ground. There currently is not enough data to give developers an idea of costs. At a recent Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting, the gentleman in charge of this program on the state level could not give concrete estimates as to what additional costs this would create for developers. This warrant is being pushed as if it applies only to new construction, and it does today. But it was revealed at a recent planning board meeting that the town, once the town adopts this code, the state can update this code at any time, just as they do the building code. When it is updated, the town has no say or vote on this matter, and this could affect every one of us here in that it could affect not just new construction, but additions, renovations, and anything else that you do in your house. The town of Dedham is in a housing crisis and has witnessed tonight a huge budget crisis and is in no position to turn developers away and force them to build in other towns that have not instituted this code. The other huge question is the infrastructure in Dedham is not ready. Eversource is not ready. As we know, there are some issues. There's current developers that are trying to develop in Dedham Square, and there isn't enough power there, and the power had to be brought over from Bryant Street. As a Dedham resident and business owner, I urge town meeting members to vote against this article. Take it up in the future when either the state mandates it or more data is available to make the best decision for the town of Dedham at that time. The town currently is not ready for this new regulation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mateo. Chair recognizes Kristen Schelling. Mr. Sullivan. She started walking before you, Jim, so. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good evening, town meeting representatives. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kristen Schelling, and I'm a resident of Precinct 7. Just to be clear, I'm not a town meeting member. I'm a licensed architect, though, in Massachusetts, and I wanted to come share my professional support for the specialized opt-in code and highlight a few points that may help you as you gather your thoughts and cast your vote tonight. In its simplest nutshell, the opt-in code is going to help Dedham construct more energy-efficient new construction buildings. By creating energy-efficient buildings, we're actually building a much higher quality end product. We have a tighter enclosure that better stores energy, and that efficiency gives our mechanical and electrical systems a break, allowing them to perform better for longer. This means we're saving substantial money through lower utility bills, less maintenance, and are experiencing an overall longer lifetime for our building systems and assemblies. Just an example, on a recent commercial residential project of mine, we had a contractor price air source heat pumps, which are great, versus geothermal wells. We found that in just 7 years' time, any added cost from installing a geothermal system was fully recuperated because of the lower utility savings per year, and those lower costs would continue to be seen through the lifetime of the building. In addition to lower utility and maintenance costs, these high-performance buildings are also healthier because they use less or no fossil fuels. They can also more successfully maintain comfortable temperatures, and their operations are generally quieter. This really makes for an improved user experience over conventionally designed buildings. Because of this, I'm seeing these energy-efficient buildings are quite alluring to clients who are looking to grow their own net zero or net zero-ready portfolios, not only because of the major financial incentives that become available to them when doing so, like through Mass Save or through the Inflation Reduction Act, but because their tenants or buyers are actually demanding what we all want: lower bills and healthier, more comfortable spaces to live, work, and play. I just want to touch quickly on a few misconceptions I hear in the opt-in code, about the opt-in code. I mentioned fossil fuels earlier. It's important to note that the opt-in code does not prohibit the use of fossil fuels. We primarily think of this as the oil, propane, or gas for heating or cooking in our homes. For some people, this is an important aspect of their home or business, and the opt-in code recognizes that, and it does provide pathways for compliance. But we should remember that it is those fossil fuels that are harming our environment and our own health and wellness, and a large part of the reason we want to adopt the opt-in code is so that we're building a healthier future for ourselves and our children. The opt-in code makes pathways for a lot of buildings to use electricity. Is this too much for the grid? I hear this concern too, but buildings have become increasingly electrified over the past decade. Nearly all the projects I've worked on recently, which are primarily commercial, residential, and office, are using electric heat pumps. 5 years ago, this definitely wasn't the case. And in response to the desire for electrified buildings, we're seeing the utility companies react, rising up to meet these demands. Both Eversource and National Grid have submitted plans to the state that outline how they foresee accommodating the increased capacity for electrification hosting. And these plans not only focus on upgrading the grids themselves, but better preparing the equipment for resistance through tough weather events and generally increasing the dependability of the systems for customers. To wrap up my comments, I just wanted to reiterate that we are up to 43 communities in Massachusetts that have adopted the opt-in code. We are at 34 when I last spoke at the committee's forum just last month. And for some comparison, after the stretch code was put into effect back in 2009, there were only 2 communities that had voted to adopt it. This tells us that over the past 15 years, our communities have become interested in pursuing more sustainable regulations, and that our surrounding neighbors right now, in their 2024 election cycles, are voting to adopt this code. Why vote now? Because each building that we build now affects our carbon footprint. If we can build better today, we should. This is our responsibility to our future selves. Dedham's buildings account for nearly 60% of greenhouse gas emissions. That's almost 20% higher than the national average. We've got a lot of older buildings here, so it makes sense. With a stretch code already adopted, we're doing the best we can as a town to help existing buildings become as energy efficient as they can be. But by adopting the opt-in code, we'll be able to do the same for buildings of new construction. As the state moves towards its net zero carbon emissions goal for 2050, with the opt-in code adopted, we'd be a town that is well-versed in the latest sustainable building practices, with experienced inspectors and commissioners, and seen as a leader that prioritizes the health and future of our community. As an architect, I very much support the opt-in code for my community, for Dedham, and I hope you will too. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Sullivan.
Jim Sullivan, Riverside Drive, and I am also a building inspector in town. Just so everyone is up to date, we've had, well, let's start. January 1, 2023, we had a new energy code. with 2 weeks' notice. Generally, we get 6 months of a congruency period to go from the old code to the new code. Department of Energy took over the energy code. Bang, here's your new code. We're getting a new code again, July 1, 2024. And now if we vote for this, we'll get a new code probably January 1, 2025. For the builders, architects, engineers to keep up with all these code changes in that period of time is not going to be a smooth transition. And that generally costs money. I get today plans from 2022 come to me because when homeowners, now this is, homeowners get estimates and they get plans made up, then they go to try to find somebody to build it and it costs more. So it sits. Now they come back in and they submit these old plans and now you have to send them back to the architect to get updated. It costs money. That's part of it. The other point I want to make, for a new construction, we get a report from a home energy modeler, a HERS rater, home energy rating system. Pre-construction, we know the efficiency of the home, the efficiencies of all the appliances, the windows, the insulation, everything. Before we can issue an occupancy permit, we need a follow-up from the HERS rater to confirm that that house passes. Without that, they go back to the drawing board and try to come up with a fix to make that house pass. In their report, they use a standard number of 100, okay? That was from 2000, that's the 2006 Energy Code. Today's number is 52, okay? So if a house was built in 2006, they would get a 100. Today we get 52. July 1, we go to 44. If you want fossil fuel, it goes to 42 and you have to have solar. So all these energy improvements that they're asking for, we're doing them. They're here. As far as the carbon footprint goes, she's 100% correct, both speakers. However, in Dedham, how many houses are more than 20 years old? 90%? As a guess, maybe more? That's where the carbon's coming from. My home, built in the 50s at Colonial, maybe the 40s. It's been remodeled, renovated, insulated, new systems, new windows. I'm at about a 125. Houses that haven't been updated at all are up to 150, 160s. So to do this and change it again for 2 HERS percentage points or so, 2, maybe 3, is it worth it? I think not. And another fact, the code is a minimum standard. Anyone can build above the code. We have a house being built on Highland Street, net zero house. We had a build on Madison 10 years ago. Their walls were this thick. They built double walls and filled it with insulation. So there are lots of properties in town that you can build whatever you want to build. Why we have to dictate, it's not necessary because it's coming. I'd say 3-5 years tops, we will all have this code that we want to pass tonight. All that being said and done, as soon as you throw a bare fridge in the garage, bang, you just blew the number and your house doesn't pass anymore. So that's how tight these numbers are.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Hi, I'm Laura Fukushima from Precinct 4. So I just have a question. There's been some concern expressed about how the state might make changes to the opt-in code after it's adopted, if we adopt it. So my question is, if that were to happen, would we be able to vote again at a future time to remove ourselves from the opt-in code?
Before we get to Mr. Popoli, is there somebody that can answer that question? Yes, Ms. Walton.
Yes, you would just vote on it at town meeting, similar to the way we are now.
Thank you. Mr. Popoli.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Drew Popoli, Precinct 7. I'm also a commercial real estate developer, so I live this pretty much daily. I won't go into the 7 to 10 minute diatribe I did at Planning Board. Feel free if you haven't already watched it, but I'm going to hit on some just high-level points to reiterate here. This commits us to future changes. That is incorrect. If they change the code, we are now subject to that since we've adopted it. There's no question there. Builders will build to the market and what the market wants. They do not need to be forced. If the market is trending towards more efficient homes, if that's what people want, that's what builders will build to. We're not in the business of building things that people don't want. We're already overburdened by codes and regulations. It's already too expensive to build. Those costs get passed down to the end user up front. I have to put in additional insulation, double to triple pane windows, more efficient HVAC equipment. These are things we do because that's what the market wants. We don't need to be forced to do it if there's another situation that maybe we want to build to a lower profit margin to help affordability. More housing, more affordable housing doesn't equate with more cost, especially when we have high debt and building materials are at historical highs. They talk about this Built Energy Plus study that it's 1% is the change in your building costs. That is a joke. That is a bunch of academics, not people who are practical users. 80% of the builders who do new buildings in this town came before the planning board and said that they are seeing 12 to 15% increases in their costs. The people who make out on this are architects, subcontractors, and engineers, which you have to spend money with these consultants to improve your buildings and make them hit the codes. Of course an architect's going to love this. That's additional billing hours.
Mr. Popoli, you're coming a little close to the line of talking about people versus the issue, so just...
I'm not using anyone by name, but I'll agree with you, Mr.
It's only been one architect who spoke here, so just squish back just a bit. You're making your point, just don't...
Long story short, it's not time for this to be implemented here in Dedham. There's too many gray areas. When and if it is pushed by the state and it's mandatory, then we need to do it. But until then, let's see how it develops. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Rick Mahalka, Precinct 2. I did want to speak to the point of market pressure and how that might be beneficial to us moving forward. Previous speakers cited that there were only 40 cities and towns participating in this. I think that's a bit disingenuous given the populations of those 40 cities and towns, including Boston. They also mentioned a level playing field. If I'm looking at that map and looking at the neighboring towns and the playing field, it looks relatively level close to us. So thinking about how far developers are going to go outside of that blue bubble to develop, it seems relatively level in our area. And to the issue of it's not the time, I do think it is the time. There's not a more pressing time for us to address this issue, and I think Dedham can be a leader on that issue. I speak for this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sazatsi.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Andrew Shasti, Precinct 7. I know the Finance Committee vote was kind of split on this, so through you, Mr. Moderator, I would like to hear positions of the Finance Committee. And I also know the Select Board didn't take a position last week, but they just had a meeting tonight, so if we could also know the results of their recommendations tonight.
Chairman of the Finance and Warrant, do you want to talk about the Finance Committee's position? Well, wait a minute. We're still talking Finance and Warrant, please.
Yes, the vote was 6-3 in favor of this. I was one that voted against it. As I said at the mini, nothing against the concept of the opt-in. with clean air and other issues. I just had a concern that we didn't hear from developers, other people that might want to speak against this. So that was my vote against it. There was 2 other of my colleagues that also voted against it. Not against, excuse me, not to recommend the article.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. We had a question about the Select Board, Dr. Tian. Then we'll move to Mr. Matthews.
Good evening, everyone. Dennis Tian, Chairman of the Select Board. The Select Board voted this evening 3-2 in favor of the article. I don't know, Andrew, what other information I can give you. I could explain a little about how I personally voted, or we could have other members explain how they voted. I mean, what would you like, Mr. Moderator?
No, you gave the vote.
Okay, fair. I'm happy to answer any questions about that vote if anyone would like.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Fred Matthews, Precinct 3. I move the question.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All those in favor of moving the question say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We'll move the question. Now we go to consideration of the original motion, which is that it be so voted. Let's use our clickers. All in favor of the original motion, please click yes. If you're opposed, click no. Vote open. Vote is open. Vote is closed. 139 town meeting representatives having voted in favor, 89 opposed. The vote carries. There being no further business before the meeting, it's moved by Gemma Martin, seconded by Mary Ann Martin, that the 2024 Spring Annual Town Meeting be dissolved. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.